Story 1. My lifelong friend pulls pregnancy prank on me by saying my husband is the father. Yesterday, my husband, 32M, and I, 30F, attended my best friend Sarah's, 30F, baby shower. Sarah and I have been best friends since our college days. We initially became roommates, but our friendship grew stronger as we discovered our mutual love for similar music. We attended concerts together and made countless memories. By the time we reached our final year of college, we were practically inseparable, spending summers together in each other's homes whenever possible. After completing our studies, we both took different paths in our careers. While I secured a highly sought-after position at a prominent law firm, which had always been my dream, Sarah wasn't sure if she wanted a traditional 9-to-5 job, so she decided to explore social media as a form of revenue. Regardless of our vastly different schedules, we made it a priority to set aside our weekends for each other. Whether it was going on a hike, trying out a new restaurant, going out for drinks, or just staying in to watch a movie, it was during one of our girls' nights out that I met Michael. He was attending his friend's bachelor party, and from the moment I set eyes on him, I knew he was the one for me. Although we often playfully argue over who fell in love first, the truth is that we both fell deeply in love that very night. Fortunately, we've been happily married for 5 years now, and our marriage has been nothing short of perfect. I often tell Sarah how grateful I am that she had invited me to the pub that night. Otherwise, I would have never met my wonderful husband. While Sarah remained single for a few years after my marriage, she eventually met her current husband, Mark, and the two of them celebrated their second anniversary this year. 3 months ago, Sarah shared with me the exciting news that she was pregnant, and I was beyond ecstatic. I couldn't wait to see my best friend start this new chapter in her life and hold her little one soon. I was honored when Sarah put me in charge of organizing her baby shower because I was going to be the baby's godmother. After considering several themes, we finally decided on yellow, which was Sarah's favorite color. Throughout the planning process, I kept in close contact with the caterer to ensure that everything was in order and that the cake was delivered on time. As luck would have it, I had worked with the caterer before at my brother's wedding, so it was a breeze working with her again. On the day of the shower, we arrived a bit early to make sure that everything was perfect. Mark met us at the door and let us know that Sarah was still getting ready. While setting up, I noticed that the cake wasn't centered on the table just like Sarah wanted, so I took care of it. Soon after, the guests started arriving, and I was thrilled to see some of our old college friends. We hadn't seen each other in years, so we took this opportunity to catch up and share important life updates. In a vibrant yellow dress that matched her baby shower's theme, she had a radiant smile as everyone congratulated her. As the event progressed, everyone sat down to enjoy a delicious lunch. Everything seemed to be going perfectly until Sarah called for everyone's attention. She stood up and thanked us for coming to her baby shower. Then she took a deep breath before announcing, "I'm thrilled to tell you that my husband, Mark, and I are expecting our first child, and I have someone very special to thank for that." I noticed Mark looking at Sarah with a puzzled expression, trying to understand what was happening. Then, pointing directly at my husband, Michael, she loudly says, "Everyone, I'd like to introduce the father of our baby." I almost choked on my food. The room was filled with an eerie silence, and I could sense that everyone was taken aback and unsure of how to react. My mind raced to try and make sense of what was happening. My husband, who is not one for attention and prefers to keep to himself, grasped my hand tightly under the table. I turned to look at him, and he looked as puzzled as me. All eyes were fixed on us in an uncomfortable and awkward silence. I turned to Sarah, looking for an explanation. Just to give some background, my husband and I have been trying for years to conceive for a while, but had no luck despite undergoing multiple tests. Due to some personal medical issues, we haven't been able to get pregnant. I've shared this issue with only a few selected family members and close friends, including Sarah. Eventually, my husband and I came to accept the fact that getting pregnant might not be in the cards for us. So, rather than focusing on that, we learned to be content with our life together as a couple. Sarah publicly referring to my husband as the father of her baby was a complete lie, but I couldn't help but feel hurt by her words. My eyes welled up with tears, but I tried my best not to break down in front of others. All of a sudden, Sarah burst out laughing and playfully nudged her husband, Mark, exclaiming, "I was just kidding, guys. This is all just a prank for my Instagram. I have put up cameras everywhere to capture all of your reactions." As everyone looked around perplexed, I couldn't help but feel irritated with Sarah for taking us on such an emotional roller coaster. I couldn't believe that my best friend thought pointing out my husband as the father of her baby in front of everyone was funny, knowing full well that we were struggling to conceive. I turned to look at my husband and saw that he was red in the face, still holding on to my hands. I could tell how embarrassed he was at that moment. Although a few guests let out a nervous laugh or two, there was a general sense of discomfort in the room. I noticed that Mark, Sarah's husband, didn't join in the laughter. He looked more irritated than amused and looked at my husband apologetically. Over the years, Mark and my husband had become good friends, and I think he felt bad for us at that moment. I didn't want to confront Sarah then and ruin her baby shower. As she continued with the baby shower festivities, I tried hard but couldn't shake the unease that had settled in. After lunch, we played a few games and then finally opened all the gifts. Throughout all this, Sarah was the only one who seemed to be enjoying herself, chatting with other guests and clicking pictures for her social media. My husband had already expressed to me privately that he wanted to leave after the disastrous lunch, but I begged him to stay. I didn't want the guests to notice us walking out suddenly, and I assured him that I would be talking to Sarah regarding this. I guess Mark too was uncomfortable to go through with the party any longer because he suddenly stood up with a stern face. He asked Sarah if they could step outside for a moment, and I knew that something was about to happen. We could all see and hear them clearly as they talked, and it was clear that the mood around the room had turned uncomfortable after Sarah's prank. I watched as their conversation grew more heated, with Mark's gestures becoming more animated by the minute. Suddenly, Mark's voice rose and his words carried across the room. "I can't believe you would do something like this. They are our closest friends. And it's not just a harmless prank. You also made a mockery of our baby shower and humiliated me in front of everyone." Sarah kept repeating how she thought it was just a harmless joke, but Mark wasn't having any of it. Mark reiterated, telling Sarah to grow up and not make insensitive jokes, especially when they were celebrating the arrival of their child. The room had grown uncomfortably silent now, and all of us could hear their words clearly. My husband couldn't take it any longer, so he got up and left, telling me he would be waiting for me in the car. Although my heart ached for my friend, I also knew how hurt my husband was, and I couldn't blame him for leaving. Seeing my husband leave, Mark must have understood how hurt he was. He turned to Sarah and said, "I'm done. I'm done with your immaturity. We're done. I will love this child, but I can't be with you for 1 second longer." Upon hearing this, Sarah burst into tears, and Mark left the party. We were looking at each other in disbelief and didn't know how to react. Although my heart ached for my best friend, I knew my husband needed me more at that moment. I didn't want to confront Sarah after her difficult conversation with her husband, so I too left the baby shower without saying goodbye. When I reached home, I saw how upset my husband was, and we both couldn't believe what came over Sarah to play this prank on us. In the evening, Mark sent us an apology text saying that he had no idea that she would play this prank for a video and that he was sorry for what we went through. We were glad he reached out because we didn't want to have any animosity towards him and completely understood his point of view. Unfortunately, today, I woke up to several messages from Sarah. She explained that she played the prank due to stress from her pregnancy and just wanted to create a viral reel for her Instagram. She said that she didn't understand why we were upset about it and also inquired why I left without saying goodbye. She asked me to meet her today so I could drive her to her gynecologist appointment. Starting to feel frustrated again, I let her know that I didn't find her prank amusing at all. I explained to her that what she did was disrespectful and made both my husband and me uncomfortable. I also told her that I needed some time away from her and wouldn't be able to take her to her appointment that day. Sarah responded by calling me a shitty friend for leaving her during such a vulnerable time. This message really upset me as I couldn't believe she would say something like that just because I needed some space. When I shared Sarah's messages with my husband, he was just as angry as I was. He suggested that we shouldn't engage with her until she understands the severity of her actions. I decided to send her a final message letting her know that I wouldn't be speaking to her until she apologized to both me and my husband for what she did. I also made it clear to her that if she dared to upload the prank video, I would take legal action against her. Rather than apologizing, Sarah responded by saying that she didn't believe she had done anything wrong. She even went as far as to suggest that I was jealous of her because of her pregnancy. When I read her reply, I just couldn't believe my eyes that this woman, who had been my best friend for more than a decade, would believe that I was jealous of her when I had gone above and beyond to give her the perfect baby shower. Sarah shared with me that she won't be uploading, but I should put my feelings aside and support her through this challenging period. She claimed that her husband had not come home the previous night and she needed me now more than ever. As I am a non-confrontational person, I found myself in tears reading her insensitive messages, realizing that I couldn't continue with this conversation. I made the tough decision to block her without any further response. So, AITA for not being there for my pregnant best friend because of the prank she played on us and feeling glad that her husband dumped her? Update 1. It has been a week since my last update, and a lot has occurred since then. I would first like to emphasize to everyone that Sarah is not someone who jokes around, so for her to play this prank was a complete surprise to me. I have known her since our 20s, and she has never been the one to pull a prank on anyone. Anyway, Mark was serious when he said he was leaving Sarah. My husband spoke with him over the weekend and learned that Mark is actively seeking a divorce lawyer. Since that day, Sarah has been relentlessly calling and texting him, demanding that he come back to her and get over his feelings. However, Mark has not responded to her attempts at contact. She even went a step further, accused him of sleeping with me, which came out of nowhere. He is just sad that their marriage is ending because she is slowly turning into someone he doesn't recognize anymore. Since I've blocked Sarah, she hasn't been able to contact me, so she sent a lengthy message to my husband instead. She accused him of trying to ruin our friendship and wrote that he isn't much of a man because he can't get me pregnant. When my husband showed me the message after returning from work yesterday, I was absolutely furious. Until now, I had been trying to let things slide because I assumed the sudden change in her behavior could be due to pregnancy hormones. But her nasty words to my husband were completely unacceptable. Hence, I decided to teach her a lesson. As I was in charge of the baby shower, this also meant that I was in charge of the baby registry. I had spent countless hours with Sarah discussing her needs and coming up with a list of essential items that she would require for the new baby. However, Sarah demanded that we include outrageously expensive items on the list, which not all the guests could afford. During the baby shower, I noticed that while some people stuck to the list, others gifted her with items that were not included but would be useful for a new mother. Sarah seemed unhappy, and I had planned to gift her a few of those expensive items from her list. However, once she crossed a line by targeting my husband, I canceled the order immediately and deleted the baby registry to ensure she would not have access to it. If she wanted one now, she would have to create one from scratch. Additionally, I received a message from the caterer a few days ago regarding the baby shower, but I was too preoccupied with dealing with the situation with Sarah and was unable to respond. The thing is, as a surprise gift to Sarah, I had already paid for half of the booking fees for the catering service and had planned to pay the final amount after the baby shower. However, these recent events had caused me to become distracted, and I had forgotten about it. I called the caterer and explained the situation with Sarah. I let her know that I wouldn't be paying the rest of the amount after what had happened at the baby shower. The caterer was more than understanding and informed me that since Sarah had booked the catering service under her name and they had been in contact leading up to the baby shower, she would be sending the final bill to Sarah instead of me. I was relieved that I wouldn't have to spend any more money on someone who had insulted us publicly and continued to hurt us with her rude text messages. I also let my husband know what happened, and he found it amusing. Although I've considered reaching out to her in the past few days, after she sent that message to my husband, I've decided that I've moved past the point of forgiveness. I'm grateful for everyone who supported me and helped me realize how toxic her behavior was. Looking back, I can recall several instances where she put me down, but I never thought much of it until now. Anyway, I'm going to stay positive and move on from this experience. I don't want to waste any more of my time or energy on her. Update 2. This woman is shameless. Days after I had a word with the caterer, I received an email from Sarah. As soon as I saw her name pop up in my inbox, I knew she was back with her bullcrap. In the email, she accused me of being cheap for not paying for the entire catering service even though I could afford to do so. She told me that I have always been stuck up just because I was born into my family's money and that she was glad I could never be pregnant. She continued to tell me how all these years she had just used me to make her life easier. She then proceeded to call me ugly several times and insinuated that I was undeserving of my husband. She said that my husband had married me for my money because I was too dumb to be married to him. She called me an a-hole for driving a wedge between her and her husband. Throughout the email, she used explosive profanities and basically just called me every bad word under the sun. I showed the email to my husband, who immediately lost it. Over the years, we both have gone above and beyond to help this woman on several occasions. We have been there for her when she was single and crying over her multiple breakups. We have taken her on vacations with us wherever we went and even paid for her flight and room on several occasions. My husband had helped out Sarah's parents in repairing their house and had lent them some money a while ago. We had always treated her like our family. My husband immediately reached out to Mark and invited him for dinner so we could discuss the situation. When Mark arrived, we showed him the email, and the look on his face was beyond disgust. He also showed us text messages he had received from her where she had sent him similar profanities and went on to accuse him of cheating on her. We were greatly disturbed by the seriousness of the allegation, considering that it was not something to be casually thrown around or expressed in anger towards one's spouse. It was hard to believe that my former best friend, whom I had only recently broken ties with, had changed so much. Mark informed us that he was in contact with a reputed divorce lawyer. According to the advice of his lawyer, he never replied to her texts, no matter how deranged or vile they were, and just kept screenshots of everything she was sending him. He also took a photo of the email she had sent me so he could show it to his divorce lawyer. Now, since I posted the initial story, I have received a few DMs from people saying that they are worried for Sarah and are assuming that she might have some neurological issues because of the sudden changes in her behavior. I would just like to tell these people that she has always had a temper issue, even when we were in college. Although I have never been on the receiving end of her anger, I have seen her lose her temper quickly and use profanities on other people, even in public spaces. Although I highly doubt it's a medical issue, my husband and I will still try to reach out to her parents regarding this. We plan on telling them everything as well as showing them all the messages and emails she has sent us. If they feel that there is something wrong with her after that, then it's completely up to them to take her for a test. Despite everything, I have no intention of unblocking her or responding to her email. I have gone above and beyond for this woman, and for her to persist in mistreating me, demeaning me, and showing me disrespect is beyond disheartening. I plan on putting this whole incident behind me and enjoying my life with my husband and our dogs. The past few months have been a whirlwind of emotions, to say the least. I trust that everyone is enjoying a wonderful start to the new year, just as my husband and I are. We are currently in the Maldives, taking a much-needed break from our demanding careers. Given the year we've had, we decided to disconnect from work and indulge in some relaxation time. So far, we've spent our days lounging on beaches and savoring refreshing cocktails at the resort. Coming on to the much-needed update that several of you have asked for. As expected, Mark and Sarah have officially divorced. The court case was contentious, with Mark's lawyer presenting evidence and their previously agreed prenuptial agreement. Despite Sarah's efforts with her lawyer, they were unable to win the case. However, both parties have been ordered to create plans to co-parent together in the best interest of the child's well-being. After we reached out to her parents about her erratic behavior, we have since learned that Sarah had to move back to her parents' house. Apparently, due to her pregnancy and lack of proper work experience, she was unable to support herself for long just through social media. As a result, she had to move back in with her parents. I also learned from our mutual friends that after the disastrous baby shower, everyone quickly dropped her from their circle as they didn't want to be involved in her drama. Since filing for divorce, Mark held off visiting her until she was taken to the delivery room, where he remained throughout the night to witness the arrival of their daughter. He has been content caring for the baby, spending time with her whenever possible, and paying for the child support according to their agreement. He still gets together with my husband every weekend, either to play golf or enjoy drinks in the evening. Regarding the baby shower caterer, Sarah had no other option but to compensate the bill after the caterer threatened legal action. I have received a few subsequent emails from Sarah where she still holds me responsible for the way her life has turned out. Despite her parents taking her for numerous medical tests, she is perfectly healthy, and therefore her immature actions have no excuses. Hopefully, for the sake of her daughter, she will try to change herself and become a better person in the future. As for me and my husband, we didn't let this incident affect our happy and healthy marriage. We moved past it after a month and focused on our personal and professional lives. We still make sure to go out on our Sunday dates, just like we did when we first started dating. Whenever I look at my husband, I still feel the same excitement and appreciation that I did when we first got together. I am grateful to be spending my life with him. I want to extend my empathy to all the couples who have expressed their difficulties in bearing children. I want you to know that it's perfectly fine. Life has its own ways and we have to trust the journey. If you truly love your partner, there are other options available to become parents. However, my husband and I feel fulfilled with each other's company, and we have decided to focus on spending the rest of our lives in happiness together. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Let my entitled SL use my house for her wedding. Then I found out I wasn't invited because she told her rich fiancé it was her house, so I canceled the wedding last minute. Hey everyone, I, 34F, have been following this sub for a long time. Lately, there's something going on in my life that I needed an opinion on. I have read a lot of posts involving SILs to see if someone has gone through my situation and how they dealt with it. Well, I guess this situation is unique for me, and I would need some advice on this. It's about my SIL, and that's the reason I cannot discuss this with my husband, family complexities. So, here's the thing. My SIL, 27F, is planning a spring wedding. She wants to organize it at my house. Yeah, that's right. Not to brag, but I own a 4-bedroom house with a pool and big lawn. She's engaged to an Irish guy, so his family and relatives would need a place to stay over for a night when they come to attend the wedding. We have a pretty spacious living room as well, and a big lawn outside. She is planning for an outdoor wedding on the lawn, followed by dinner/lunch in the living area. That's how she wants this to be. Now, the obvious question is, am I okay with it? Well, I don't know. That's why I'm here seeking advice. Well, let me give some context. I have been married to my husband for 8 years. We met at grad school. We dated for 4 to 5 years before getting married. He doesn't come from a well-off family, but he is a hardworking, self-made man. My FIL worked as a daily wage laborer and MIL did odd jobs. My husband has a younger sister who has been living with my in-laws. Mind you, she is 27 and still doesn't work. Not only do they provide her with food and shelter, but they also cater to her extravagant demands. By extravagant, I mean beyond their means. Unlike my husband, who has completed his master's, SIL is a school dropout. Her parents didn't even insist she complete her school because she didn't need to be told anything. She is inspired by this new age influencer that a degree doesn't make you rich or successful. It feels weird to me because I've been raised quite the opposite. Though my parents are quite well off, they never served us with any privilege. Yes, we went to a private school, call it luxury or whatever, but beyond that, my parents did nothing to contribute to my career. When my brother and I were in high school, Dad told us up front that either we grab a scholarship or we get an education loan. He was not going to pay for our college. We used to hate it and thought our dad was a tightwad. We studied hard and got scholarships. Now that I'm older, I realize the goodness of his parenting. He made us self-reliant, especially after seeing my SIL. I'm convinced how important is the role of parents in an individual's life. When I got my first job straight out of college, I went nuts partying and holidaying. Dad sat me down and showed me some good housing properties. I was happy that finally he was letting go of some money off his clingy fists, but that wasn't the case. He wanted me to buy the house myself. He paid the down payment, though. He explained the importance of having my own house, and the sooner the better. He advised me to rent out half of it to get help on the mortgage. Thanks to his timely advice, I own this house today. Seeing the housing prices now, I think if I hadn't bought it then, I wouldn't have been able to get such a spacious property at this rate. If I have to talk about my relationship with my in-laws, it has been okay-ish. We don't meet that often. They live across the town, and I lead a very busy life. I still have a decent bond with my MIL. We talk once a week, but I just cannot bond with my SIL. I just can't. We are poles apart. She doesn't like me because during our initial interactions, I used to convince her to complete her education and get a job. She thinks I'm jealous of her because her parents are taking care of her while my parents abandoned me to live on my own. The worst part is my in-laws say they are struggling financially, yet they are feeding their 27-year-old daughter. My husband and I offered to help her get a back-office job, but neither she nor my in-laws showed interest. She's a bum, no doubt there, but my in-laws should have pushed her to work, but they are happy to provide for her. Coming to her wedding, there are a couple of reasons why my SIL wants to marry at my house. One is, of course, it's spacious. She could have the wedding and lunch/dinner all at one place, and even her guests could stay and they need not book a hotel. Another reason is she cannot afford to rent a venue. If not my house, she has to settle for a city hall wedding. She doesn't earn, and my in-laws don't have a fortune to spend at her wedding. My husband doesn't want to have a say in this because it's my house, and he wants me to take the decision irrespective of what he thinks. That's how my man is, and that's why I love him so dearly. So, my problem boils down to this. Do you guys think I should let her use my house as her wedding venue? Update 1. Hello everyone. Tomorrow is the wedding, and today I got to know that I'm not invited. The funny part is the wedding is at my house. Let me start from where I left off the last one. So yeah, I agreed to let her use my house for the wedding. I was definitely apprehensive about it, but eventually I came along. Now I regret my decision. I'm fuming with anger. So please excuse me if I just rant my heart out. My SIL is nothing but a who uses men for money in exchange for, you know what? She is not even that pretty. And don't get me started on her dumbness. But, once the light goes off, most men don't care about all this. She might be good at what she offers, that's why she was able to hit the jackpot. That's what she calls her fiancé. Jackpot. Not only she's shallow, but also a liar. Got to know that her Irish fiancé is quite well off. He works as a banker. Even his family is well off too. So, in order to impress them, she lied to him that my house was theirs. I knew about this lie long ago, but I didn't mind because I don't care if putting up a facade brings any good for her. Let her be. It doesn't change the truth. When her fiancé proposed to her for marriage, she came to me and almost begged me to let her use my house for the wedding. If this was not enough, my in-laws came pleading for it. They said if I didn't agree to this, they may have to pull out a loan to finance her wedding. I told them, why can't SAL and her fiancé fund themselves? My in-laws were like, traditionally, it's always the girl's family who throws the wedding, and the Irish follow this tradition more than us. I don't know how true this is, so please don't pick up on me. It's not my words. Besides, SIL has already boasted to her fiancé and in-laws about her big house that can host a wedding. Her stupidity made me crack up. I said, what if I don't allow the wedding at my house? I mean, I can do that, right? Don't you think she should have asked me first before committing this to her fiancé? My in-laws nodded and requested I save their reputation. I told them I would do that, but they should have done a better job raising their daughter. See, I don't sugarcoat my words, and maybe that's why they think I'm arrogant. They don't understand that I say this for their own good. You see what happens next? They paraded at my house until I agreed to this. At one point, I was like, it was a matter of 2 days. Let's get done with this. And yeah, people asked me in the last post if she offered to pay rent. Haha, no. All these happened 3 months ago when I made the original post. Fast forward to 2 days back. SIL arrived with my in-laws and 2 more guys. I was at work. I saw that on the camera installed inside. It has a motion sensor. I called her and asked what was the matter. She said those guys were wedding designers. They were here for a site visit to plan the wedding accordingly. I asked her to be careful with my stuff. She assured me she would take care of it. After I paid off my mortgage last year, I got rid of the renters who were occupying the 2 rooms upstairs. I took a leave from work to set up 2 bedrooms for them. I hired a cleaner to do the task. It's a huge house to clean everything myself. Today, SIL showed up at 6 a.m. while we were still sleeping. She was leaving for her bachelorette next town. She was here to see if everything had been set up properly. She was happy to see that I set up 2 bedrooms for them and rented a bigger dining table for tonight's dinner. She then goes around the house saying, "Okay, those 2 rooms are set for my in-laws. Mom and Dad would take your bedroom, and I would get your other room with a walk-in closet." Woo! I'm so excited to show them my big house with this fancy stuff. I can't wait to see their amazed expressions when I give them the house tour. I was confused. I mean, where do we fit in? The rest of the conversation goes like this. Me, sorry, I'm confused. If your parents take up our bedroom, where do we go? Sael, well, I don't know. You can go to your parents' house or maybe check into a hotel for 2 days. You both earn in bombs, pretty sure you can afford it. Me, but why do we move out of our own house? Sael, because to them, it is my parents' house, remember? And you can't live here. It would look very weird for a married brother and his wife living with my parents. I felt dizzy at the conversation, like, the WTF? Me, so you're going to portray this to be your parents' house? And you live here like a princess? Sael, pretty much. I was pissed off already. I put up a straight face and asked, so, as for your fairy tale, where do we live in case your in-laws ask us? So, oh, they won't. I mean, how would they? You guys won't be present here, right? Me, what about our stuff? Our photographs? Sael, who would know it's your stuff? I'll tell them it's all mine. The only problem is the pictures of your hallway. We'll have to remove them before they arrive. I sighed and asked, so, even if we vacate the house to put up with your facade, we still would be meeting them at your wedding, don't we? What if they ask us then? I asked this question sarcastically, but her answer blew my mind. Sael, no, there's some misunderstanding here. You are not attending the wedding and family dinner, not at all. I was like, what the hell? Sael, I'm not sure how this happened, but I never invited you guys to the wedding. Did Mom or Dad send you the invite? I felt so stupid to talk to her dumbass. I yelled my husband's name, who was blissfully sleeping. I yelled his name so loud that he ran and came outside. I screamed, did you know that we were not invited to the wedding? Looks like his body was awake, but his mind was still asleep. Whose wedding? Oh yes, her wedding. Are we not invited? I mean, why? I said his sister was saying she had not sent the invite to us, so how could we assume that we are invited? He was like, let me grasp the situation. I really don't understand what's happening here. It took him a few minutes and a few repetitions to understand what just happened. He was aghast as to how we could not be invited to the wedding hosted at our house. My SIL said, well, if that bothers you so much, you can attend it, and probably you can say your wife is unwell, so she had to skip it. I asked her what was her original reason to justify our absence. This woman had the audacity to laugh at my face and said, oh, you won't believe. I told them that my parents have cut you off because you're too toxic. I was like, wow, what else can I expect from you? I stormed into my room without saying anything. It was so useless to waste my time talking to her. My husband followed me inside and assured me that it was still my decision if I wanted to withdraw my consent. I said, I don't. No, I'm too mad to think straight. I need to cool down to make a rational decision. That's why I sat down to update it here, thinking this might help, and it helped. I feel much lighter, but this doesn't mean I'm going to bow down to the princess's demands. I don't know what to do now, but I'm definitely not leaving my house to partake in her tale of lies. Whatever happens, I'm going to update this thread. You guys can count on me. Update 2. Hey guys. Thanks for engaging in my posts. Yes, you all were right in saying that the pampered princess lives in a delusional world. Before that, let me answer a few common questions from the comments. How can my SIL access my house in my absence? After I agreed the house to be let out for the wedding, I gave her the spare key. The front porch, living room, garden, and pool area are all covered with cameras, so I felt okay sharing the spare key. Second, how come Sal's fiancé bought her lies that the house was hers? Didn't he ever visit her place? I'm not sure how she was able to sell that. She has been dating him for less than a year. 2 weeks before the wedding, she brought him to my place to give him the house tour while I was away for work. After I wrote the update that day, I discussed my thoughts with my husband. Though he was siding with me, saying it was my decision, he was worried that if I backed out, his sister's wedding would be called off and his parents' reputation would be ruined. I said, "Let's talk to your parents then." We drove off to their place. We told them about Sil's plan of excluding us from the wedding. Apparently, they knew about it and it seemed they were okay with it. My husband lost his mind and said, "You guys knew that she was cutting us off from her wedding, and you were okay with it?" Amael responded in a meek voice, "We thought you guys were also okay with it. None of you asked us why she hadn't sent the invite to you." At this point, I questioned myself if we were wrong in assuming that we were invited to the wedding because it was in my house. My husband and I stared at each other in shock. My husband screamed at them, "Do you guys realize there would be no wedding if she, meaning me, backed out from her decision? What if we tell the truth to her in-laws?" Amael panicked and requested us not to do such a thing. Ephiel intervened and asked me gently if I would be fine to attend the wedding if Ephiel sent the invite now. I remained silent and didn't answer because I was fuming in rage. Ephiel asked Amael to call Ephiel and ask her to send us the invite right away and apologize to us. Amael was hesitant to call her, but Ephiel stared at her with red eyes. Amael shakily calls her. Ephiel tells her to put the phone on speaker. Sil responds to the call and yells at Miel for disturbing her at her spa session. Miel told her it was urgent and that Ephiel wanted her to invite me and my husband to the wedding. She flips out and says, "No way I'm inviting that." She thinks herself to be too smart. Miel tried to stop her in between and whispered, "They're here with us." But the princess was too busy ranting. She was like, "If she meets my in-laws, she's going to outshine me. I want to look the prettiest on my wedding day." On top of that, you know how she always talks about different stuff. Jobs, careers, investing, and those blah 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 to grab everyone's attention. I don't want that on my wedding. Everyone's focus should be on me. If she's around, she would make me sound dumb. So no, she is not allowed at my wedding. She hung up. I sighed. "I make you sound dumb because you are a dummy," and stormed out of the house. When my husband stood up to leave, my in-laws requested him to calm me down and that they would speak to Sil and make her apologize. Apology my ass. Meanwhile, Sil dropped me a text that I should get rid of our portraits from the hallway and move out of the house after overseeing the arrangement tomorrow. She was like, "My fiancé would reach the venue with his family by 10 a.m., so move out before that. But make sure you drop my parents there before leaving. The wedding planners by themselves. I will be staying over at my friend's place after the bachelorette party. I'll hit the salon directly from here and reach the venue as a bride." "Sure, Your Highness. I'm going to plan a perfect wedding for you." By the time we reached home, it was late afternoon. I called up the mechanic and got the locks of the house changed. Later in the evening, my husband called up Ephiel and said we were not allowing the wedding at our place, so better look out for another venue. He tried to call Sil, but she was busy being drunk at her bachelorette. Ephiel called back in panic asking what he should do. My husband suggested if he wanted to save his reputation, then better call up his side of the guests and cancel the invite, giving any suitable reason, because there was no way the wedding was happening on the scheduled date and venue. The night was thrilling just by imagining the expressions on Sil's face when her truth came out. Around 6 o'clock in the morning of the wedding day, my doorbell rang. It was the wedding designer. He was here to start the wedding preps. I said it was my house and there was no wedding there. He got confused and said Sil and her fiancé had made the booking for that day. I told him to call them because my house was not up for grabs anymore. An hour later, Sil's fiancé came knocking at my door. I answered the door, and he asked me if Sil was at home because she was not answering the call. I said, "No, she was not here because it's not her house." He said, "Maybe there's some confusion here. I'm her fiancé, and we have a wedding today in this house. I'm guessing you are her Sil. I saw your photos in the hallway the other day." I smiled and said, "You are right. I'm her SIL. But there is more truth coming your way. Let's start with the basic one. This is my house and I live here. SIL and parents-in-law live across the city in an apartment. By the way, congratulations on your wedding, but it's not happening here anymore because I changed my mind. I don't know what happened after that. Around 9 a.m., this princess came banging at my door. I didn't answer. She called my husband asking what was wrong that I chased away the wedding designer. He said that our house was not up for grabs and she should find another place for her wedding. She screamed and banged my door, asking us to open it. I opened my window and yelled, "If there's one more banging at my door, you might end up in prison on your wedding day. If it all that happens." She cursed us and called us names for ruining her life. She left after the neighbors threatened to call the cops on her. She blocked her number, but she bombarded my husband's phone with filthy voicemails, calling him a simp for not standing up for his sister. I asked him if he was upset. He said he was upset, but she had called for it. She cannot assume everything to be served to her on a platter. She was ungrateful and took us for granted. She told her fiancé it was her house and planned the wedding here without even asking my permission. On top of that, she cut us off from the wedding. Calls me what good does she expect in return? My in-laws have not taken this well. They blame me for tarnishing their reputation. It makes me question their value system because they were clearly okay with their daughter cutting us off from the wedding despite hosting it at my property. As far as her wedding is concerned, it was called off that day. My SIL and parents-in-law went to meet them to request them to wait for a week so that they could arrange another venue. I heard her fiancé called out her BS in front of everyone and said he was calling off the wedding and he would have to rethink their relationship. God knows what happens now. I'm glad I'm out of this drama. I have a life to lead and a career to excel. God bless her lying ass. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My boyfriend never holds my toddler and avoids kids until his family told me the reason why. Turns out he tried to save his niece from an accident, but she died in his arms. I, 27F, have been with my boyfriend, 28M, J for 5 years. We've both been very close with each other's families, and we've even talked about marriage. However, one touchy subject is children. Whenever we discuss it, he gets kind of standoffish. He doesn't really dismiss the idea, though. It's just that he doesn't seem invested. I've always wanted kids, and he just always says he's fine with whatever makes me happy. Ever since, I've been content with this situation. However, things escalated during this holiday season. Our setup has always been that Jay spends Christmas Eve and dinner with my family, then I spend Christmas Day with his family. This was the first Christmas I'll spend with my first and only niece, Anna, 2F. She spent her first Christmas in the hospital due to her health condition, but she's okay now, so I made sure to spend a lot of time with her. We played a lot, we opened gifts together, and I even reenacted Anna's favorite storybook using her favorite doll. We even had matching outfits. My sister, 30F, Amy, thanked me for giving her and her husband some relief from childcare the entire day. However, Amy also said she noticed that Jay, who was just either sitting on the couch watching me or helping my mom with the dishes, was kind of distant with Anna. I told her I've also noticed that before, and I just chalked it up to maybe Jay was hesitant and awkward to play with Anna because he feels he's just my boyfriend. Then Amy said she won't mind since she and her husband already treat Jay as part of our family. I then went back to Jay and encouraged him to play with Anna and help us set up her new dollhouse, but he said he's not feeling too well. He ended up drinking a few more beers and stayed on the porch by himself, scrolling on his phone. I didn't press harder and thought he might really just be feeling under the weather. I just want to add for context that Jay isn't an alcoholic. He's a sweet, wonderful, funny man who's sometimes broody and deep in thought, but he's never abusive, manipulative, or moody, and he only drinks on special occasions. The next day, on Christmas Day, we had lunch with Jay's family. Afterward, I volunteered for cleanup to help Jay's mom, 62F, Mary, and brother, 31M, John. Jay's family was the best any significant other could ever ask for. They're very sweet and supportive of us, but they're never prying. They always check up on us, but they never overstep. So, as we were cleaning up, Mary asked me how my sister's baby was. They helped with the bills when Anna was hospitalized last year. I told them that Anna's in great condition now and that she already spent Christmas at home. They were very delighted upon hearing this. Then I shared with them the thing I noticed about Jay. Initially, I thought maybe Mary could just give me advice on how to approach the issue with Jay since he's clearly not the playing with kids kind of guy. But then John casually said something like, "Oh, because of Rosie." Then Mary quickly shushed him. Rosie was the daughter of Jay and John's eldest sister, Beth, 35F. I never knew the actual details because everyone was very secretive about it. But all I knew was that Rosie passed away when she was just 3 years old, and Beth and her husband moved away afterward. I never met them in person. So later that night, when Mary, John, and the other family members got a bit more drunk, and Jay was already sleeping in the bedroom, they told me the story. I didn't force them or anything. Apparently, Jay, being the youngest of the siblings, was really close with Rosie back then. Jay was just around 14 years old when Rosie was born, so he became the super fun uncle, like I am now with Anna. He was actually Rosie's best friend. Then, on the summer of 2012, Jay was playing with Rosie outside. He was blowing bubbles, and she was chasing and popping them when a speeding car, driven by a woman who was distracted on her phone, skidded into the yard toward Rosie's direction. Jay reacted quickly and was able to reach and grab Rosie, so the car actually hit him. But the impact of the crash caused Rosie's head to whiplash as Jay hugged her. Jay was in a coma for 3 days and had multiple severe injuries and internal bleeding, but Rosie didn't make it. Everything was caught by the neighbor's CCTV, so everyone knew that Jay was a hero for trying to protect Rosie. It was even covered by the local news. But Beth, who was understandably in grief, resented Jay for not being able to save her daughter. Beth and her husband then decided to move to another country to cope with their grief and start a new life, and they've had minimal contact with the family ever since. Jay, meanwhile, took the loss really hard. He blamed himself for not being able to save Rosie and not being able to attend her funeral since he was still at the hospital at that time. Mary said that Jay was never the same after that. He never went near kids, and he became a lot colder, quieter, more reserved, and antisocial. He also had anger issues, but it thankfully went away. I haven't had any issues with this. We also live in an area where people don't believe in therapy, so Jay never received professional help. After learning all of this, I bawled my eyes out because I never knew Jay was carrying such a heavy burden. The whole incident became a taboo family secret that no one mentions in fear of Jay breaking down or doing something he might regret. Although, to be fair, he's never had violent or self-harm tendencies ever since, so this was just a precaution. They also never told me before because they assumed Jay would be the one to tell me, but I told them that he never did and that I never really asked him. I then thanked everyone for letting me in on this, and I told them that I'd talk to Jay about it when the time is right. They understood, and they said I could just ring them up if I need help or support in any way. For now, I just want Jay to enjoy the holidays and his remaining vacation days from work. Now I don't really know how to start with him. I know seeking professional help to process all the trauma and grief, even if it's been over a decade ago, would be the top priority. But I don't know how to bring it up to him. I don't even know when is the right time to bring it up. I just want him to know that I love him no matter what and that I'll support him in every step toward his healing, especially if we're to form a family of our own. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. Jay is amazing. What a shame his sister blamed him, but I guess that's what grief does to you. I hope he gets the therapy he needs. OP. From what I gathered from Jay's family, Beth never really voiced out that she blamed Jay for Rosie's passing. However, she became cold toward him to the point of almost ignoring him during family gatherings before they moved. Of course, everyone knew what it was all about. Comment 2. Holy crap. I think we were all thinking that he had the worst intentions in the beginning, but that couldn't be more wrong. This man was a hero, and unfortunately, his family has turned it into a dirty secret. I feel for you both so much. I don't really have any advice. I just want you to know that you are both incredible people, and I hope your love finds a way and you're able to raise a beautiful family together if you choose. OP. It's really sad how the family handled it, but I can't really blame them because I grew up in the same area. We live in a provincial, non-progressive city, and their family even lives in a more rural community where everyone knows everyone. If there's any scandal that potentially tarnishes the family name, it's swept under the rug. I guess the heroic part of the story is something that family could have been proud of, but the trauma, anger issues, lashing out, and antisocial behavior that Jay developed, as well as how Beth left the community afterward, outweighed everything, so the entire thing just became the family's dirty secret. Comment 3. She died as he was hugging her. I can't imagine the grief he went through. OP. That's also something bothering me a lot. Of course, I'm just assuming here, but knowing how much of an overthinker Jay is who hyperfixates on what-ifs, I know he has replayed the moment in his head a million times, overanalyzing every little detail. One of the worst things he could possibly be thinking is that maybe he was the one who killed Rosie because it was the whiplash and not the actual crash that impacted her the most. It's bad enough that he lost his niece and best friend, but for her to die in his arms and thinking that it was him who might have accidentally killed her instead of saving her is absolutely horrible. That's the what if I fear he's thinking the most. And just to be clear, no one actually blames him. Comment 4. Why are they so hard-pressed on forcing him to interact with a child more than he wants to, instead of letting him get comfortable in his own time? You're all forcing him to do it right now. I'm very uncomfortable with children, but given time, I'll come around. I just need to get over the anxiety and panic about hurting them by accident. If somebody in their family were this insistent, I'd just be more uncomfortable. OP. I don't think anyone is really forcing him, though. In the 2 years we've welcomed Anna into this world, no one has forced Jay to interact with her just for the sake of it. I've been interacting with Anna every time our family gets together, and Jay has been distant but fine overall, and we just let him be because it was never an issue. We all just accepted that he wasn't comfortable around kids. Also, when I was encouraging him to interact more during Christmas Eve, it was more along the lines of, hey, you're welcome to help us with this dollhouse. I know you're judging my lack of craftsmanship here, lol. Amy's intention of bringing this to my attention is just to make Jay feel more welcome in our family. Again, it was me who assumed that maybe Jay was just awkward with Anna because he might have felt like an outsider and he didn't want to overstep. My entire conversation with Amy was rooted more in including Jay in our family and making him feel comfortable enough. However, given everything I've learned, I'll make sure that everyone is more sensitive with this subject around him. Update 1. April 19, 2024. Hi. It's been a while since my first post. I have some major updates for anyone interested. You may check my profile for my previous post. Also, I took some time to organize my thoughts first to make sure I don't miss anything pertinent. It's kind of long as a lot has happened since, so I've divided this into sections to make it easier to follow. Quick recap. My boyfriend Jay and I have been together for 5 years. Throughout our relationship, I noticed that he's always distant with kids, including my niece Anna. During Christmas, Jay's family revealed that it was because of an incident over a decade ago. Turns out Jay was really close with his toddler niece Rosie. One day when they were playing outside, they were hit by a distracted driver. Jay tried to save Rosie. He sustained severe injuries, but Rosie still didn't make it. Beth, Rosie's mom and Jay's sister, acted cold toward Jay after this. Then she and her husband moved to another country after a few months. From then on, Jay's personality changed, becoming cold and antisocial, and he never received professional help. All of this has become Jay's family's dirty secret. Part 1. The Confession. Since learning about Rosie and posting here on Reddit, I've been so conflicted about what to do. A lot of you had opposing opinions, and all of them had merit, but knowing Jay and how he'd most likely react, I chose to keep it a secret until I find the perfect time. What I didn't anticipate was that the perfect time would come in the form of a pregnancy scare. Back in January, I had a false positive. Everything happened so quickly. Within a day, I had a roller coaster of emotions, but bottom line was that I'm not pregnant after all. When Jay got back home that night, I knew I had to tell him everything. I told him I had a pregnancy scare, but he has nothing to worry about since it ended up being negative. At that moment, I saw all the blood drain from his face, and he became so pale that I was worried he was going to faint. I was holding his hand, and he became so sweaty, cold, and shaky. He rushed to our refrigerator to get some water, and it was obvious he was spiraling really hard. That was when I told him I knew about Rosie. I came clean because I knew that was what he was panicking, thinking about. I assured him that I'm by his side and he could react however he wanted to. I repeatedly apologized for disrespecting his trust and lying to him for weeks. I also asked him to please not be mad at his family because they meant well when they told me. Throughout all of it, I couldn't really read Jay's expressions. I wasn't sure if he was about to scream out of anger or burst into tears. I told him that we don't have to talk about it any further if he doesn't want to, but I'd be willing to listen and support him whenever he's ready. His only response that time was him asking me if I wanted to break up with him, which confused me. I told him of course not. Then we hugged. Then he said he needs some time to process everything before we discuss it, which I respected. For the rest of the week, we tried to interact like nothing happened, but everything was awkward since there's this huge thing hanging between us. Part 2, the talk. The following weekend, which was 8 days after, we finally sat down and talked about everything. He started by apologizing for not telling me sooner, but he revealed that his last girlfriend dumped him after he told her about Rosie. He said he was so relieved after I reassured him that I wouldn't do that. He then told me that it was something that's been weighing him ever since, and he's confirmed that he never sought or received professional help. However, he said he's very much open to doing that, but he didn't think he's ready yet. He also said he's afraid to go down that path because it might release some inner demons and drag me down with him. Another thing Jay told me was that ever since Rosie was born, he felt an instant and deep connection and a sense of responsibility for her, even when he was just a teenager that time. He said that having Rosie in his life made him realize how much he wanted to be a father when he's older. However, since the incident, he's afraid of messing things up again, so he never really considered having kids from then on, despite really wanting to do so. I then reassured him that we're on the same page on this. Although I also want to have kids with him in the future, I don't want to force it on him when he's not yet ready. He also said that whenever he sees me with Anna, my niece, he gets kind of jealous because he wants to join us every time. However, he constantly reminds himself to keep his distance just to be safe. I told him he doesn't have to worry about that and that he's more than welcome to join us if he wants to. I also told him that my sister and the rest of my family actually considers him a part of our family just to reassure him more. Jay tried to lighten the mood by joking and saying, "Now that I know everything about him and still didn't break up with him, I could finally expect a proposal anytime soon." We both had a good laugh, but we agreed to wait for his recovery first before getting engaged or discussing our future family. Part 3, Beth. During our discussion, Jay also had another heartbreaking revelation. He said that during the height of the pandemic, Beth's husband Brian reached out to him. Brian said that Beth had COVID and was confined in a hospital, and that he was already running low on funds due to bills and unemployment. He also said that Beth had been almost catatonic since Rosie's passing. She had been resistant to any outside and professional help, but she was institutionalized for about a year after a self-harming incident. For the past decade, she'd been cold, distant, and withdrawn from society. Apparently, the rest of Jay's family also knew about all this, but again, they just swept it under the rug. To be fair, they had been helping Brian by sending financial aid to support Beth. But their version of the story was that Beth had just gone low contact since they moved. Also, to be very clear, Jay said that Beth never blamed him for what happened to Rosie, although he initially felt that way when he was younger. It was more of their parents interpreting and spinning things a certain way to avoid tarnishing their family's reputation. But when Brian reached out to him directly years ago, he started to understand better. However, he still hasn't processed everything, and he still partly blames himself for the whole thing. Part 4, our current situation. For now, what we're exploring is couples therapy so we can discuss our mutual issues in a safe and pressure-free space and hopefully kind of ease him into the world of therapy. We've already found the perfect therapist to help us, and we've now had 6 sessions with her. From what I can tell, Jay seems a lot happier and less burdened. We've also had homework from our sessions, and Jay was even the one reminding me to do them. Right now, I'm just hoping that he becomes ready enough to open up about Rosie so he can heal and recover from his trauma. Not for me, but for his mental and emotional well-being. No rush, though, all in his own time. Also, Jay has no social media, but I showed him the original Reddit post I made. He spent like 3 hours reading through all the comments. It was the first time I saw him get teary-eyed because he never expected so many people giving him support and saying kind words to him. He was extremely overwhelmed by everyone's kindness, so we're both grateful to all of you for that. We also saw some TikTok and YouTube versions of the story, and you bet Jay browsed through all of them. He's still baffled why the TikTok versions have Minecraft or cooking videos in the background, but I just told him it's a trend. Haha. So there, if you've made it this far into our story, thank you for your time. I have a good feeling that Jay and I are going to be fine. We still have a lot of challenges ahead of us, but here's to hoping for the best. Edit. So Jay and I now kind of share this account. He might reply directly from time to time. This is his first time on Reddit, so please be kind to him. I had to explain to him what OP and a lot of the other lingo mean, haha. Yeah, but we're both reading everything. Again, thank you for being so kind. Now for some comments. Comment. I hope Jay continues healing and eventually Beth somehow gets out of the mental hole she's in. Both them went through something horrible that no one who hasn't been in that situation can comprehend. Thoughts for both of them. OP. Thank you for your kind words. As for Jay, I can see that he's already making some progress, even though it's more like baby steps. Nonetheless, it is still progress. As for Beth, I can't even begin to imagine what she's going through. I just pray that she finally finds some peace eventually. OP on why Jay's family chose to keep this as a secret. I won't make excuses for them. On a human, personal level, they are extremely lovely, generous, and kind people. They have welcomed me as a part of their family, and they even extended help when my sister's daughter Anna had congenital health problems. I have met different relatives of my exes before, and in comparison, Jay's family has been the most wonderful and welcoming. However, I would say that they are a product of the very traditional, non-progressive area in which we live. We are a Catholic community, and most activities revolve around our parish. Reputation is everything, yet town gossip is still very rampant. I understand that this may sound backward thinking in our modern times, but that is the reality of our lives. I also grew up in the same area, so I fully understand their behavior. Although I agree with you that everything that happened and how they reacted to it had been unfortunate, to say the least, and Jay and Beth got the brunt of it. OP on how Jay's sister Beth is dealing with the grief process and if she has received therapy to deal with her daughter's death in better ways. Beth has recovered from COVID, so she's physically fine now. However, she's still mentally detached and has gone back to her almost catatonic state. Jay suggested couples therapy to Beth's husband after experiencing it firsthand, but we don't have an update on it yet. Also, thank you so much for your insights. You said a lot of sensible things that we never knew. Both Jay and I were clueless about therapy and psychology in general, so we actually learned new things from what you said. Jay says he appreciates you and is extremely grateful, and so am I. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My father is cheating on my mom with a young woman. What should I do? I need advice. I never post on Reddit, and I'm also on mobile, so sorry if the formatting is ugly. Today, I experienced the definition of EFF around and find out. Some backstory. Almost a year ago, my family experienced the loss of my grandpa, my dad's father. It was sudden, and it struck my father really hard. He started having more emotional outbursts, being more reclusive, etc. We tried our best to be understanding and help him in any way he needed. He found himself a therapist and seemed to be working through a lot of his feelings and thoughts. He still wasn't acting entirely like the him we once knew, but death affects everyone differently, and this made his behavior easy to excuse. My dad and I don't live in the same city, so we often meet up at halfway points for lunch. We have always been close, so it's commonplace for us to talk about our feelings, emotions, and recent life events with each other. Now the story. During our first lunch since my grandpa's passing, I noticed my dad talking a lot about this new girl at his work. We will call her Stacy. He said that Stacy was helping him a lot with his trauma and being there for him. Stacy's husband had been through some similar traumas that my dad had experienced, and that was being brought up in therapy, so he said she offered him support. He really felt he could be himself around her. He made it abundantly clear that he did not feel he could be himself around his wife of 20 years, my mom, but that he could with Stacy. I thought this was an odd comment to make, and I think this is where my suspicions of their real intentions began, but I knew he was struggling. It made me feel relieved that he had someone he trusted. It struck me a little weird that she was 29, but again, sometimes workplaces can create weird and unexpected friendships, and with me being 26, I wondered if maybe he saw her as another daughter since I wasn't able to be around much due to distance. He assured me that Stacy was married to a man named Andrew. They were strictly friends, but in his own words, people from his work had started to think something was going on between them, so they had stopped talking at work and had moved to texting. He even went so far as to later in the conversation say that he thinks a strong marriage should be able to survive someone cheating. I assured him that that wasn't healthy, and that I'm not sure what kind of relationship he wanted with his wife, but I did not want a relationship founded on infidelity. Obviously, my alarm bells were going off. With what little information I had on Stacy, I went and found her online. I stalked her, and just like my dad said, she was seemingly in a young, happy marriage with Andrew. She kept her social media pretty private, but from what I could see, she looked like your average 29-year-old woman. I couldn't possibly imagine what she would want with my dad, and if anything, I thought maybe my dad had a work crush that he was reading too much into. No one wants to think that their dad could be capable of a full-blown affair. Over the next few visits with my dad, I would hear him continually talk about Stacy. When telling stories about work or talking about his friends, she always seemed to come up. I couldn't help but notice that he would avoid calling her by name. She would just be she or her or girl from work. It's as if he completely forgot the things he had told me about her, or as if he was afraid to say her name around me. Infidelity is never mentioned again, but he is always talking about how he's fighting with my mom, Lily, and how as he goes through therapy, she might not like the man he's becoming. He tells me how he's standing his ground and getting into verbal arguments with her. I imagine this is self-sabotage due to his guilt because of the cheating. Fast forward to today, about a year since I first heard about Stacy. I went on my laptop, which I do not use often. I opened Instagram and I realized I still had my dad's login credentials saved on my computer from a one-off back in 2016. My dad is and always has been sketchy with his passwords, so I assumed that likely it wouldn't work, but I tried to log in anyways. To my surprise, I was in. I won't even pretend like I didn't know exactly what I was looking for or like I'm above looking through his DMs. This is also where I effed around and found out. I opened their DMs, which were pretty bleak at first. I thought that I could rest my suspicions, more like hoped, until I couldn't. It started out with sending corny photos to each other. Things about, "You can kiss me whenever you want. I'm yours and your arms feel like home, and I'm homesick." Really juvenile, weird shit things I wouldn't send to a coworker if you paid me. Still in denial, I kept scrolling, and that's when I saw it. Nudes from her, only thank God. Full-blown sexting conversations about their existing partners and the potential of leaving them for each other. I love you conversations with their plans to sleep together for the first time, etc., etc., etc. You get the picture. All of my suspicions laid out in front of me. He was willing to risk it all for a married woman, 3 years older than his daughter. He was willing to hurt the woman he had supposedly loved for 20 years. Destroy his family. Destroy Stacy's family for what? Absolute effing selfishness. The worst part for me was that they actively talk about their existing partners in this chat. Stacy is always making fun of my mom. Does Lily wear lacy bras for you? Does Lily let you go down on her with her bush? As if Stacy couldn't become a more disgusting human. As if she's not already sleeping with a married 53-year-old father of 2. She has to degrade his wife, an innocent victim in the situation. They assure each other that they love their current partners so much that it hurts, and they don't understand how they can have the capacity to love 2 people at the same time. It's disgusting and childish. I don't know how this ends. They still work together and closely together. I cannot bring myself to tell my mom. I don't want my dad to know. I know I don't want him to feel backed into a corner like he has to tell my mom. I want him to tell my mom because he knows it's the right thing to do. I have looked up to my dad my whole life, and I feel like the whole view I have had of him as this selfless, loving, caring family man has been shattered. I'm so disappointed in his actions, and I don't know what to do. It's eating away at me. Edit. I was told it would be beneficial to add that my parents do have a kid who is a minor who lives with them. I have not known about this affair the entire time. I found out about it on Thursday, so please stop saying that I'm intentionally holding this secret from my father. My parents share an email account, and I will not see my mom in person until probably Christmas. Relevant comments where the OP answered, comment. Armed with this info, I would set up a one-on-one meeting with mom and tell her, and bring the evidence. In volatile situations like this, it is best to be proactive versus reactive. Advise her to go into stealth mode and to act like nothing is going on. Next steps. 1. Help mom find 2-3 divorce attorneys and schedule the consult. The consult is usually free. Have her present the circumstances and find out their approach. She can then decide whose style she likes most and retain them. 2. Have her gather the following documents. A. Last 3 years' tax returns. B. 12 months bank statements, retirement account statements, investment statements. C. Copies of mortgage deeds/title to the home. D. If they own any vacation or rental real estate. Make copies of the docs from #C. E. 12 months worth of credit card statements, cell phone bills. Have your mom try to see if she can get access to his wallet while he is sleeping, and if so, check it for any new credit cards. If she finds any, have her screenshot them. What state are you in? Depending on the answer, infidelity may qualify her for a fault for the divorce filing. Helping her prepare for this will give her a leg up for a softer landing. If you can find the info for her affair partner's spouse, she can and should make contact the day your dad is served. By the way, he can be served at work. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. OP replied, I have decided to take your advice. I'm going to tell my mom. She deserves to have the upper hand in decision-making since my father has been the holder of all decisions for months. Unbeknownst to her. I'm currently just waiting for a time when she is not around my dad so I can call her and drop the bomb. They're currently driving up to their cottage together, so it doesn't feel fair for me to not let her have room to grief/figure out her next move. I will post an official update when I have one, most likely Monday when she goes to work. Update. October 23, 2023. Update. My dad is having an affair with a 29-year-old woman, so I finally called my mom. Her and my dad had spent the day together at their cottage, so I waited until they were home and then asked if she could go somewhere alone so we could talk on the phone. Her reaction was nothing like I imagined. She sounded like she already knew. Her reaction also made me feel like this wasn't the first time this has happened. She laughed and asked me what I thought I saw. She blamed herself and said that she doesn't meet my dad's needs. I explained to her that that's not fair and that she doesn't deserve to be lied to and cheated on and put at risk for STDs. I said the way they spoke about my mom in the chat was disgusting and that this was wrong. She asked to see the screenshots, so I sent them to her. She kept reassuring me that her and my dad were in it for the long haul and wouldn't divorce. I told her I didn't care about that. I said no matter her decision, I supported her either way. Even though it wasn't what I was anticipating, I felt relieved. I felt like a weight had been lifted. She thanked me for telling her and said that I would always be her sweet girl. Everything seemed to be going well until she spoke to / confronted my dad and called me back. I don't know what happened with the conversation between her and my dad, but it's clear that he is a master manipulator and not at all the person I thought he was prior to all this. My mom's tone had completely shifted on the phone. She was scolding me. He confirmed the affair. He confirmed everything I had said and brought forward to her. Somehow they're blaming me. They're telling me I'm wrong. My mom told me that she's read all the screenshots I sent but had nothing to say about them. They're staying together and, in her words, this is just a bump in the road. They've had highs and lows, and they'll have lows again. I said I would support her either way, so I can't be mad. But I can't help but be sad at how low she thinks of herself to accept this behavior. I love your dad and he loves me. What a horrible message to send to your child. She told me that guilt does bad things to people and that she thinks I got myself worked up over nothing. She told me it was wrong of me to look at his Instagram messages and that it was a breach of trust. Ironic considering my dad committed the biggest breach of trust there is in a marriage. I also never would have looked at his messages had he not planted the seed of infidelity in my brain. She explained my dad is very angry with me and she doesn't know if our relationship is reparable. I assumed my dad would be mad at me, of course, but for my mom to seemingly side with him and turn her back on me too is almost too much to take. I know she's being manipulated, but this is where it ends, I guess. I can't stand to look at either of them. I feel like I was just orphaned. I can't fight a fight someone doesn't want me to on their behalf. Deep down, I know I'm not to blame for this. Don't get me wrong. But it's really hard to not feel awful when your parents, whom you've trusted, turn their back on you. I do feel like I did right by myself and telling my mom the truth, but I can't help but think that everything would have been easier if I never said anything. My dad still follows Stacy. He has blocked me and my fiancée on all social media platforms. He's quite literally showing that he chooses his AP over his daughter. I know he's reacting out of embarrassment and anger, but I've blocked him in return. He doesn't get to choose when he comes back into my life. All of this hurts a lot. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Like you said, this wasn't the first time. And it may well be that they already have an understanding about extramarital affairs, and that may run both ways. So you notifying her didn't tell her much she didn't already know. Instead, it just made it awkward for her to discuss it with you. Ultimately, people are complicated and you don't know their sexual history, which predates your existence. It is and will remain fundamentally unknowable to you. Your dad is a piece of shit though for how he is reacting to you. OP replied. In Stacy and my dad's DMs, they both outlined the fallout they believe would occur if their respective partners found out about their affair. I don't believe even if my mom and dad have a don't ask, don't tell policy like another Redditor suggested, that it is a two-way street. But you're absolutely correct. I don't know their agreements within their marriage, nor do I want to LOL. Seeing the things that my dad said in his DMs was way more than I ever needed to know. I do find my dad's reaction of anger very telling though. Honestly, the relationship I have with my dad, he probably would have just told me of their agreement had there been one. Comment 2. Have you asked your mother if she'd expect you to stay in that situation if it were you in her shoes? If she says no, I'd ask her what example she thinks she's setting by doing so herself. You can support her and distance yourself from the situation and from them. Them blaming you for telling the truth is wrong and separate of the support for what she chooses. And you can also support her and choose to limit or forego the relationship you have with your father entirely. I have a feeling when your wedding approaches, your father is going to want to play perfect dad in all the events and pictures. Will you allow him to? OP replied. When it comes to my mom, I told her I would support her either way. As much as I don't agree with her choice, I'm not in her position and don't know what kind of factors are coming into play for her to stay. Who knows, they could be waiting for my younger brother to move out before they call it quits. For now, I'm in C with my father and I'm willing to be LC with my mom. But no one has spoken to me since, so I think it might be NC with all as it stands currently. I don't anticipate inviting my father to my wedding, which is really hard to stomach. We never planned for a big wedding, so his presence was definitely going to be a big one on our day. Unless something is massively repaired during that time, I don't need the added stress. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I spent too much time in my bunker, and now my wife is mad at me. My grandfather was an incredibly talented man who also suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. He was convinced that the nuclear apocalypse was going to end the human race at some point, so he built his own bunker and then buried the entrance because he was convinced that both the KGB and the CIA were watching him and wanted to keep the bunker a secret. Yes, he was a crazy man. My dad inherited his house but never lived there. So, when I had my first child in 2018 and got married in 2019, my dad made me an incredibly generous offer for the house. I bought computers that were more expensive than the house. The bunker became kind of an urban legend, mostly because my old grandpa used to tell a lot of crazy stories. But out of curiosity, I went looking for it and found the entrance. The old man really did it. Thanks to being stuck at home during the uneventful 2020 and 2021, I started remodeling the bunker to look less like a fallout vault and more like my own man cave. Everyone loves it, especially the kids, my nephews and friends' children. So, the house is decorated to my wife's taste while I can do whatever I want in the bunker. Play, game, fix computers, set up a whole home server, work from home, etc. However, lately she has been complaining about me being distant and spending a lot of time there and less time with her and our child. She is pregnant again, so she said she was worried, but I just promised to spend more time at the house. After a few weeks, that wasn't enough for her, and she accuses me of abandoning her. I'm asking for judgment here because I'm trying to be there for my family, but this bunker feels like it's the only thing that's really mine and where I can actually have a break. But my wife has said she's going to seal the entrance. Otherwise, I might miss the birth and not even notice. Should I just move all my stuff into the house and forget about it? Am I really being neglectful, or is this just her pregnancy hormones talking? To be clear, I do help with the house chores and spend time with my son when I'm there, and I have an intercom in the bunker so my wife can just call me if she needs anything, and I'll go up there immediately. Edit 1. Everybody is asking me this. I spend at least 6 hours at the bunker on weekdays. I work there, so I think it's reasonable, and at least 4 hours on weekends. But yeah, you're right, I need to make arrangements. I forgot to mention our son goes to kindergarten, so my wife has time to work and sometimes be alone at home. Edit 2. Guys, I swear I'm taking notes. I'm just trying to understand what I should change about myself and how to talk to my wife about this. Remember that I spend at least 6 hours working, not scratching my belly. My manager allows me to log out early if I finish my work for the day, but I can't log out if I've been working for less than 6 hours. I also spend time talking with my team on Slack. Edit 3. So many of you are picking up on my language. I would appreciate it if you explain calmly why my choice of words is so bad so I don't EF things up when I speak to my wife. Update 1. I had a talk with my wife. Overall, I think it went well since she told me everything, but there are so many raw emotions right now, and I was sent to sleep in the spare room. She had no mercy on me, but we needed this talk so we can have a clear path for our future together. More about the bunker. The entrance is like 900 feet away from the house. There was also a tunnel connecting it to a hidden place on the basement, but it collapsed I don't know how many years ago, so we sealed it. Yes, the city inspected it and it's okay. I didn't bother with the tunnel because it seems to be badly built and there was a risk that it could keep collapsing if we tried to fix it. We also had to add more columns and reinforcements to make sure it won't collapse. I was recommended to have yearly inspections. Clarify, you say you work in game. Are you doing those at the same time? No, bro. When I mean working, I mean having a fight with my IDE until shit works, and when I mean networking, I mean talking to my team on Slack. Speaking to your team is as important as doing the work itself. Also, time can be spent reading docs. Then, after finishing, I can game for like an hour before going up. Yeah, I see how bad it sounds. Yeah, sometimes it can be 2 hours, but hear me out. I usually don't play online games, but single-player games with a linear story and clear objectives, so it's easy to do it till the next checkpoint, though modern games can be saved at whatever point and log out. Yeah, I think I should stop doing this or do it inside the house. Where did you work before you had the bunker? Before getting married, I just went to the office every day but had my main computer in the bedroom. When we first moved into this house, I got a room to place my computers. During this time, yes, I had more contact with my family, but it was harder to make it feel like an office. Update 2, I talked to my wife. I asked her to be very honest, and I promised to let her talk until she was done. First of all, it's not just about the time I spend in the bunker now, but she felt completely alone taking care of our little baby while I spent almost all of my free time remodeling and building, and when it's done, I'm just down there. I explained to her that it was basically my office now. She understood and apologized and then continued to explain herself. I'll just quote the gist of it because we talked for hours. I haven't been my own person since my first pregnancy. I feel like a doll. Every day is the same. I'm bored, frustrated, angry. Just when I thought it might get easier, I get pregnant again. How many years until I can just be me again? You have a big hole underground where you can play and not care about the world. I haven't read a book in years. I can't read 2 pages without falling asleep. Yes, the house looks nice, but what about a place for me? I don't want a Kindle. I don't want audiobooks to listen to while cooking or driving. I want a physical collection. Where do I put them? When was the last time I went to a library? When was the last time you gave me something made of real paper? For context, she's always been a bookworm. Loves books and the aesthetic of having shelves full of them. But it's true, she hasn't read in a long time. I gave her a Kindle for our anniversary, and I pay for her Audible subscription. I thought those would be good substitutes, but they're not. Stop thinking that a screen can solve everything. I need you with me. I married a human, not a sim. Download some emotions. I want to write again. But how? When will you read my first crappy drafts or just take a look and say it's okay? Can you have our son in the bunker for a few hours a day? He's bored here. He won't be bored down there. It was hard, but I needed it, and she needed it. I'm going to move my gaming consoles into the house and see if I can set up Steam Link to stream games from my gaming PC to our TV or something. We agreed to go on dates outside the house, and I'm going to take on more responsibilities around the house. I want to address something I was told by my parents, that I had to help with the house, help with the kids. But then I come to Reddit and it turns out that helping is a problem. You talked a lot about mental load. This was the first time I heard about it. Who was supposed to teach me that helping, not having addictions, being loyal, and always being there seemed like what every good husband does? Now I realize it was just the bare minimum. I feel like I have to relearn everything, and it's hard to realize that I'm a bad husband and father for thinking that the bare minimum was all I needed to have a long and happy marriage. I became a Reddit villain by being clueless, but I accept that. I'll see you again soon. Thank you all. Update 3. Hey guys, I hope you remember me. I'm the bunker guy. Not much has happened in terms of big events, but things are getting better. After the talk I had with my wife, I started taking more responsibility around the house. I've been taking on as much as I can so she can rest. Except I'm a terrible cook, so I have some frozen and instant food that I just heat up and call it done. But I've been taking our son to school and picking him up, spending more time with him in the bunker. He loves it. I've been gaming in the living room because I moved my consoles there and successfully set up Steam Link, so overall my wife is sleeping more and has a few hours to just do nothing. She is much calmer now. She said she loved being able to just chill on the couch and not have to worry about anything. This pregnancy has been rough on her emotions, so I'm glad to see her like this. She also spent some time with me in the bunker doing her own work, sleeping, or just hanging out. She even got The Sims and started playing again. The first thing she did was build an almost exact replica of our house. We also did a lot of cuddling down there and even had sex. I have to admit, I'm loving every second of this new dynamic, even though there are still a few things that need to be changed and tweaked. I offered to build a room for her in the bunker, but she says it gets a little claustrophobic after a few hours and she likes sunlight, so that was declined. Then I suggested building a shed for her. She said nothing, but after a few hours showed me a shed she built on The Sims. A hexagonal brick structure with a U-shaped couch in the middle, a door, and bookshelves on every wall, connected to the main house by a fenced-in path. I think it looks nice, so I will send it this week to the same people who helped me rebuild this bunker so they can convert it to CAD. Nothing is perfect yet. I have a lot to learn and haven't started couples counseling yet. That will be in about 2 weeks, but I'm trying my best. I've been an idiot for way too long and have a lot to make up for. Thank you all again. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad that he and his wife deserve whatever is happening to them right now and refusing to help them out? My father, 44M, started dating my stepmom, Julia, 30F, when I was around 16, and they got married 2 years later. Just FYI, the woman never liked me, and she's actually the reason I got kicked out of my house at 19. Since then, I haven't had any contact with either my dad or her until a couple of days ago, when my father showed up at my house to talk to me. I'll get to that later, but first, I have to get into everything that went wrong so people get an idea of what kind of a person Julia really is. My mother passed away when I was just 9 years old, and since then, my dad had been in several relationships, but he was very serious about Julia right from the beginning. She moved in with us within a couple of months, and even though she was just a couple of years older than me, she actually expected me to call her Mom. For context, I was 16 at the time and she was 24. We were just 8 years apart in age, and I didn't think it was appropriate for me to call her Mom or even think of her as somebody maternal, so I never did. Even if she had been older, I probably wouldn't have called her Mom, because it had just been 6 years since my biological mother had passed away, and I was not ready to start calling somebody else Mom and replace her so soon. Besides, when she requested this weird thing, she had only been with my father for 8 months, and they had already moved in together. My father could take their relationship as fast or as slow as they wanted, but that didn't mean that I would have to accept her into my family at the same speed. especially considering the fact that she hadn't even made any effort to get along with me or whatever. I didn't think it was appropriate for her to even request something like that, and I told her as politely as I could that I would not feel comfortable referring to her as my mom because I did not feel particularly attached to her yet. Neither did I think of her as a maternal figure in my life. I don't think I had been disrespectful towards her, but I don't know why, from that day on, she started picking on me for no reason. She would either be very nasty with me or she would ignore me altogether, and it was honestly very weird. I knew for a fact that she was doing this just because I had refused to call her mom. Even though I didn't understand back then, and I still don't understand, how it was ever going to make a difference in her life. As far as I was concerned, my dad adored her and couldn't get enough of her, and he had completely accepted her as his partner, so that's what should have mattered to her. Instead, she was obsessed with becoming my mother somehow and would even act like she actually was until I reminded her that she really wasn't. I'm not talking about her being motherly in a good and caring way. She would just boss me around all the time and try to act like she had any authority over me to prove herself to be a competent maternal figure or something, maybe. So then I would get annoyed, and I would have to remind her that she wasn't actually my mom and that she didn't need to get so involved in my life because I was not ready to give that position. Then she would inevitably complain to my dad, and we would fight, but eventually my dad and I loved each other, so we made up in spite of Julia. This is how we spent almost 4 years, and after they got married, I actually hoped that maybe Julia would start behaving normally since she didn't have any reason to be insecure anymore. But their marriage made her even more determined to become my mom, and a couple of months after they got married, she sat me down once again and we had the same discussion. This time, she told me that she would really appreciate it if I called her mom, because now that she and my dad are married, it would be better to complete our family, and I needed to accept her as my mother for that. But by then, I had already seen her true colors, and I couldn't even understand how she actually had the audacity to demand that I call her my mom after mistreating me for the past 4 years. It wasn't even as if I was particularly happy about them being married because I knew that she didn't like me at all, and neither was I particularly a fan of her. And I am not one to mince words, especially not when I was 18, so I made it very clear to her that after the way she had treated me for the past 4 years, I had no interest in accepting her as my mother or completing the family or whatever her goal was. I told her now that she was married to my dad. That's all she should focus on and stop obsessing over becoming my mom because it was pathetic. I already had a mom and unfortunately, I had lost her to an accident, but that didn't mean the position was up for grabs like she thought. In very clear and civil words, I told her that I loved my mother and I was not going to replace her, so she needed to stop trying. And I also told her that her obsession with trying to be my mom was weird, creepy, and I did not appreciate it one bit, especially considering the fact that she had actually gone out of her way to treat me badly just because I wouldn't call her mom. I'm not proud of it because it's not very politically correct, but I did imply that there was something mentally off with her because of this obsession that she had. And I guess that really rubbed her the wrong way then because after that discussion and that remark about her mental state, she completely stopped talking to me. It was as if I did not exist to her, and in my opinion, I didn't think it was a problem back then. I was actually pretty relieved that she had finally decided to get off my back. But then about a year later, I realized that she had been putting her time to good use and poisoning my own father against me. It happened very slowly, so I didn't exactly realize that my dad was distancing himself from me, and by the time I did start finding things, it was too late to change anything. It's not like I didn't try. I did make several attempts to bond with him, hang out with him, and talk to him, but he was either always too busy or he was with Julia. I could understand that after his second marriage, his priorities had changed, and I tried to give them their space, but that backfired because Julia took up all the space that he had in his life. It got worse when I went away to college, and whatever contact I had with my dad, we started losing that too. It felt terrible, and I felt like I had to do something about it. So one time I decided to surprise him by coming back for a weekend, and that's when I got kicked out. When I came back, I had expected my dad to be happy about it, but he seemed annoyed and told me that he had plans to go out for dinner with Julia. But now that I was home, he couldn't do that. I found that very insulting, and I confronted him about his behavior, telling him that he was being very distant and weird and that I was really hurt by the fact that he wasn't even happy that I had returned home to surprise him like this. I told him that I felt like he didn't even care about me anymore, and I couldn't help but take a dig at Julia, saying that I knew that this was her doing, that she was somehow turning him against me. and that turned into a full-blown argument. My dad told me that he knew I had had something against Julia right from the first day, and it was actually not her who was trying to turn him against me, but it was the other way around. He accused me of trying to brainwash him and make Julia out to be the bad guy, but he knew that she had been trying her best to win me over, and I was the one who had been rejecting her attempts to bond with me because I did not want to betray my mother. But he said that even my mom would be disappointed in my behavior. He told me that I needed to stop making up lies about Julia to get him to hate her because it was not going to work. Slowly, I learned that for the past few months, Julia had been reversing everything and telling my dad that apparently I was the one who had been ignoring her, and even before that, I was the one who had always treated her badly. It helped her case that whenever my dad was around, she was never rude to me. She was pleasant, and my dad never believed that she was even capable of being nasty to anybody. So gradually, my dad had started to actually believe that maybe I was the one who was creating problems because I was not ready to accept Julia as his wife and come to terms with the fact that he had moved on, even though that was far from the truth. I tried to explain to him that he had it all wrong, that I was the victim in the situation, but he was not ready to believe me. He accused me of not liking Julia and trying to ruin their relationship by lying to him about her, and told me that if I could not respect Julia and their relationship, then he had no space for me in his life or his home anymore. Basically, he gave me an ultimatum and told me that I could either start giving her the respect that she deserved and call her mom, or I could leave. I had no idea that this was going to get to such a stage, but when my dad said that, I didn't even bother to argue anymore. I hadn't unpacked any of my stuff, so I just grabbed my bags and walked out and never looked back. After that, I went straight to my uncle's place because out of all my relatives, he was the one that I was closest to. He's my mom's older brother who has a soft corner for me, so I knew that whatever problems I had afterward, he would help me out with them. I hadn't told him much about the situation with Julia because I already knew that he did not like her, and he did not approve of my dad's relationship with her, partly because he was loyal to my mom just like me, and also because he thought it was kind of weird that my dad and Julia had such a huge age gap. Anyway, I didn't want to make him dislike my dad even more than he already did at that point in time, so I hadn't told him much about Julia. But after I got kicked out and went to him, I explained the entire situation, and he was furious. He told me that I had done the right thing by refusing to call her mom, and called Julia a total nutcase and my dad an idiot of the highest order for falling for all her lies. Once he knew the truth, he told me that he was going to take care of everything and said that he was going to be covering all my expenses, including my college tuition from now on, which had been my dad's responsibility earlier. He also told me that whenever I needed to come back home, I could stay with him, and even after I graduated, he would help me out. And he stayed true to his word. He helped me out every step of the way and was more of a dad to me in the past 6 years than my biological father has been. Like I said in the beginning, I haven't had any contact with my dad or Julia, and neither has the rest of the family because after I told my uncle about everything, he told everybody else. I didn't exactly ask him to do that, but he was just so furious that he didn't care about the consequences. He just told everyone. Obviously, my mom's side of the family is aware of what my father did, but my uncle made it a point to even reach out to my dad's side of the family so that everyone would know. And from what I've heard, nobody has been in touch with them after I got kicked out because they were all against what happened. My uncle has told me that several people even tried to speak to my dad and knock some sense into him, but he refused to listen to them and told them that I was a liar and they should not believe me. But thankfully, my family knows that I'm not the kind of person that my father and Julia were painting me to be, and they have been pushed into complete isolation. But I don't think that they care since they haven't bothered to reach out to anybody for the past 6 years. I, on the other hand, have been doing pretty well for myself. I started interning at my uncle's real estate firm after I graduated from college, and now I have my realtor's license. And earlier this year, I moved out from my previous apartment into a much more spacious one in a better neighborhood. So financially, I don't have anything to worry about anymore, and I've even started paying back my uncle, even though he doesn't really want anything back from me. My financial condition is relevant in this situation because I'm guessing that's why my dad decided to get back in touch with me since karma has finally caught up with them. Recently, a couple of months after Julia gave birth, she got into a terrible accident, and now she's on bed rest and unable to even move a muscle. As I mentioned in the beginning, my dad visited me a couple of days ago, and after speaking to him, I learned that he had quit his job a couple of years back and started his own business, but that hasn't been going well because the pandemic hit right after he started. So financially, it's been a struggle for him. And on top of that, Julia has also refused to take up any jobs, and the entire burden of handling finances is on his shoulders. It's not surprising because right after they got married, Julia quit her job, and it should have been a red flag for him, but I guess my dad never thought of removing his rose-colored glasses when it came to her. Anyway, things got even more tense financially when she discovered she was pregnant and decided that she was going to keep the baby. She gave birth about 6 months back, and then last month, while she was driving herself back home from lunch with her friends, she ended up totaling the car due to a combination of slippery roads and a little too much champagne. Luckily, she got away with no charges, but that doesn't even matter because she injured herself pretty badly, and now she can't even do anything except wait to heal. My dad is in a very difficult spot right now because their medical insurance doesn't cover hiring a nurse, so he has to pay for that out of his own pocket since it's not like he can stay back with Julia and take care of her. He has to go to work since he'll end up broke otherwise. And so far, they've been leaving the baby with Julia's parents, but they haven't been happy about that arrangement. Recently, they have told my dad that they need a life of their own as well, so they cannot watch their grandchild every single day. He ended up getting into a fight with them because of how selfish they were being, and now they have refused to look after their grandchild altogether. My dad told me that he's been trying to think of a way that he can work this out, but unfortunately, since he doesn't have enough money to afford a babysitter and doesn't have any family members willing to help them out either, he realized that he would finally have to come to me and have me help him out instead, because he couldn't think of anybody else he could count on. After hearing him out, I instantly declined without even thinking about it twice. I'm already not good with babies, and on top of that, if this was his and Julia's child that we were talking about, then I wanted nothing to do with that kid. The two of them had hurt me enough in the past, so I obviously did not want to be a pushover and help them out with their child, regardless of what they were going through. So I declined, and I told my dad that while it was nice seeing him, I knew he was here for some purpose, and unfortunately, I was not here to serve his purpose anymore. He started arguing with me, telling me that he had gone to great lengths just to get my contact info, and he was not leaving until I forgave him and agreed to help him out. From that, I figured out that he must have bothered and pestered some relatives for a while because otherwise, frankly, I don't think there would have been any way for him to find out where I stayed until they finally told him where I stayed. And I wouldn't call it going to great lengths, and I was already pretty upset by him. His entitlement upset me even more, and I told him that back when I really needed him to believe me, he hadn't. He had chosen Julia over me, and now I'm choosing myself over him. So I kept asking him to leave, but he wouldn't budge, and finally I really lost it, and I told him that if he did not go away, I would really call the cops on him, and that would end up getting very ugly for him. In the heat of the moment, I told him that I did not have any sympathy for him, and I was not interested in helping him out or even forgiving him because I believed that everything that he was going through right now, he and Julia deserved every bit of it because she had endlessly lied about me and made me look like the bad guy to the extent that he actually kicked me out, and he, instead of believing his own daughter, prioritized his wife and her ridiculous demands. He seemed shocked when I said that, and then he quickly left without a word. But now I feel guilty because of what they're going through. I know it's terrible, and I feel like I shouldn't have said that they deserve it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I'm not the judge of that. I just feel very guilty right now. So, am I the a-hole for telling my dad that he and his wife deserve whatever is happening to them right now and refusing to help them out? Edit. So I called up my uncle and I told him about my dad's visit, and he spoke to a couple of relatives, and he confirmed for me that my dad had apparently been reaching out to everyone after many years to ask for my whereabouts. Most people hadn't replied, but one of my relatives on my dad's side, who's not very close to me, started feeling bad for my father and decided to give out my contact info and address. I guess I was right. My dad didn't have to go to great lengths as he claimed. He was just trying to make me feel guilty, I guess. Update 1. Thank you to everybody who commented on my post. It was a pretty long post, and I haven't exactly spoken about this at length to anyone apart from my uncle, so it felt good to get it all off my chest, especially everything about Julia. It really traumatized me when I was younger, and judging by the comments, I don't think that I was wrong for implying that she must have had some mental problems for being so desperate to have me accept her as my mother. But that's all that I can do. I can only imply it. I can't actually diagnose her or whatever. But I think it would do her a great lot of good to go visit a psychiatrist and figure out what the heck is wrong with her that she was driven to act like that, all because I did not call her or accept her as my mom. As for my father, throughout his relationship with Julia, I kept trying to come up with excuses for his behavior because I knew that he loved her, and for his sake I tried not to be too much trouble. But I don't think he cared about that even one bit, because when it really came down to it, he picked Julia over me, his biological daughter. So really, he had some guts showing up at my house expecting me to help them out after 6 years of no contact. Even now, I know that he was apologizing just because he wanted me to help him, not because he really meant it. So I did what I had to. I amped up security measures around my place in case he decided to show up again. And this time, if he didn't leave the second I asked him to, I'm going to call the cops without wasting any time. Ideally, I would prefer for him not to show up at all, but I know that's wishful thinking. He's definitely going to come back and try to demand that I help him out once again. He already has my contact info, so he had been texting me for the past couple of days after his visit, but I blocked him within a couple of hours. Now almost 5 days have passed since his last visit, and I guess he has been biding his time, but I have this gut feeling that he's going to show up once again. Just FYI, it's not that I'm scared of what he might do. It's just that I'm already emotionally drained, and I don't want some drawn-out confrontation with him. So that's why I'm taking all the measures that I possibly can to avoid talking to him too much and just have him go away as soon as possible. I'm hoping that the next time I see him, it's not too bad for me emotionally. Update 2. 2 days back, I posted here, and I said that I was sure that my dad was going to show up, and he did. He waited for a week from our last meeting to show up again today, and like I said, when I saw him standing outside and ringing the doorbell, I told him through the intercom that I was not willing to speak to him. I had just come back home from work, so I was already kind of tired, and I was in no mood to deal with him. So as soon as he told me that he was not going away, I just took out my phone and called the cops and reported him for trespassing. He couldn't hear me from the inside, so he had no idea that I had called the cops, and until they showed up, he just stood outside my door and kept banging on the door, telling me that I was being too hard on him, and Julia had told him that she had made everything up, so now both of them are very sorry about everything. But that's all they can do, apologize to me and hope for the best. It's not like they can actually go back in the past and change it, so I need to cut them some slack, especially considering what they are going through right now. I couldn't believe the fact that even after he had found out that Julia had lied to him about everything and had made him kick me out, he was still getting defensive about whatever had happened instead of owning up to his mistakes. When he was talking to me, he was treating the whole thing with such a casual attitude that it was really infuriating for me. But I still kept my cool and I didn't respond to him. I'm thankful that the cops arrived within time because his whole, "what can we do about it now?" shtick was really getting on my nerves, especially considering the fact that he had ruined his relationship with his only daughter because of a bunch of lies that Julia had told him, and he couldn't even be bothered to hold her accountable for it. Anyway, when the cops finally showed up, he completely lost it at me and started cursing me out, telling me that I had lost my mind and that I had no right to call the cops on my own father. But I didn't care. I explained the entire situation, and I don't think that he's going to have any charges against him, but at the very least, this is going to teach him a lesson. When he was being taken away, he did not go kicking and screaming, but he was glaring at me the entire time, and I knew that he felt humiliated, but I didn't care. I was just glad that he was being taken away, and I wouldn't have to deal with him. It might sound cruel, but after what happened today, the way he didn't even seem to care that Julia had lied to him and ruined our relationship, I really do think that whatever I had said was absolutely correct. He and Julia deserved each other, and more importantly, they deserved whatever was happening to them. Maybe the little one didn't, though. The only person that I feel bad about in this entire situation is my half-brother, but, well, there's not much that I can do about that except just hope for the best, and I do hope for the best only for him at the very least because I don't really have anything against him. He's just a kid. He doesn't even know what his parents are like. I'm just praying that he doesn't have to get caught in the crossfire of anything and doesn't have to suffer for them, since then he would be the second child that Julia and my dad ended up failing after me. Update 3. So after the cops took him away, my dad did not contact me for almost 3 weeks. Then a couple of days ago, I received a text saying that what I had done was horrible, that I was a terrible person, and that they regretted reaching out to me in the first place because it was foolish of them to expect that I would understand their predicament right now, since I had always been a selfish brat who couldn't care less about anyone else, and that's what had ruined my relationship with my father, not Julia. It was not from a number that I recognized, so I'm assuming that it was probably from my dad or from Julia. Either way, it doesn't matter. That was the last I heard from them, and until now, they haven't reached out to me again. That was just a few days back, and interestingly enough, I heard about my dad and Julia once again today because my uncle called me up to tell me that he had heard from a couple of relatives on my dad's side that apparently he and Julia are staying separately right now because he has been asked to move out of his own house so Julia's parents can stay with her and take care of her and the baby. From what he has heard, this is all because my dad had suggested placing their baby in foster care until they're back on their feet again, and they had enraged Julia so much that she had actually threatened to divorce him. But somehow he was able to calm her down. But she was still so mad that she decided to have him kicked out of the house until she recovered. I think it's pretty ironic that after throwing me out, he is now facing the same thing. But one thing is for sure, there is definitely something mentally wrong with Julia because normal people don't behave in such extremities. Anyway, that's not something that I need to worry about because she's not a part of my life. I just find it funny that my dad is going through this, and I felt like I had to share it. This really is his karma. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Best friend ruined my life by making everyone think that I rejected them in HS because she was jealous and possessive, and her marriage fell apart because she kept bringing me up. Hello everyone. I, 28F, used to be best friends with Anna, 28F, since high school. She was popular and outgoing while I was the introverted, nerdy friend. In high school, I had a crush on Ethan, 28M, but I assumed he'd prefer Anna, so I stayed out of it. They started dating, and I supported her with reluctance because of their toxic on-and-off relationship. Over time, I grew to dislike Ethan because he was rude and mean. They broke up when we were 21 but got back together a year later and eventually got engaged at 23. 3 months before the wedding, Ethan drunkenly called me, asking why I rejected him. I dismissed him, said he was drunk, and ended the call. The very next day, I was kicked out of group chats and ghosted by everyone else in our friend circle. When I texted my friends to ask what happened, they gave me the silent treatment. When I reached out to Anna, I found myself blocked. Desperate, I even tried calling Ethan, but my number was blocked too. I had no idea what I'd done wrong, and I wished anyone would tell me. That week was hell. Anna's silence hurt the most because, at the time, she meant everything to me. I barely slept, battling panic attacks at night while trying to keep it together for class during the day. If not for my supportive roommates, who helped me through my panic attacks, I don't know how I would have made it through. Anna and I attended the same local university but took different courses. I waited for her outside her class. When she came out with her friends, I pulled her aside and asked what was going on. She accused me of being a fake friend who tried to steal Ethan. I denied her accusation and asked for proof, but she went silent and left. They didn't unfriend me on Facebook but kept posting about their hangouts and the bridal shower, along with indirect jabs at me. I eventually deleted my old account and changed my number. I slowly rebuilt my self-esteem and moved on. I recently created a new Facebook account a few days ago. I was added to a group chat for our upcoming reunion, which I had no idea about. They greeted me, calling me class president, as if they hadn't shunned me 6 years ago. I left the group, but they kept messaging me. Anna kept calling, so I finally picked up out of annoyance. She told me that she was sorry for everything and wished for me to come to the class reunion party. The party didn't seem to be complete without the class president every year, she told me. She also told me that she divorced Ethan after 2 years of marriage. She tried to reach out to me but couldn't find any of my socials or contact info after we graduated. I asked her why she was telling me all this when she was not important to me anymore. She cried. I ended the call and continued ignoring their messages on Messenger. My family says forgiveness is for my own peace and that it doesn't mean forgetting, but I don't feel anything anymore, only indifference. I don't owe them anything to ease their guilt. So I'll update. Update 1. November 21st, 2024. Hey guys. Some people from my previous post suggested that I reach out to Ethan. However, before I could do so, he reached out to me first. Yesterday, I received a friend request from him along with a message saying, "Hi," in my messenger. So we talked. He invited me for a coffee this weekend so we can talk about it. I told him to not push his luck and just answer me. I asked him about his call that night. Apparently, most boys were too intimidated to approach me, so they often asked Anna to convey their feelings to me. Ethan was one of them. A lot of boys had a crush on me back then, but at the time only Anna received open confessions, so I assumed I was undesirable. Not that it mattered to me. I was foolishly infatuated with Anna, so much so that I would have rolled out a red carpet for her to walk on if I could. She was my entire world back then. Not even once have I ever heard about any boys in high school liking me from Anna. Apparently, Anna would always come back to them with her apologetic face, telling them that I had rejected them and repeating the insults I had supposedly said about them. No wonder some people back in high school called me arrogant and disliked me for some reason. I just thought it was because I was a strict class president and student committee member, unlike Anna, who was friendly and charming. I was strict, sharp-tongued, and rarely smiled. I don't owe anyone a smile. Ethan explained that he was mean to me back then because Anna told him I had said he was an orphan abandoned by his parents. This was a particularly sensitive topic for him, as he had been raised by his grandparents since childhood. He later discovered the truth when Anna inadvertently admitted it during an argument. That moment led him to file for divorce. Ethan shared that he genuinely did love Anna, but her constant insecurity and habit of bringing up my name in every argument strained their relationship. She either accused Ethan of still thinking about me or compared him to me. Anna did find out about Ethan's drunken call that very same night. They had an argument, and Ethan came close to calling off the wedding, but Anna guilt-tripped him into staying. Neither Ethan nor Anna lied or twisted the story. Anna simply told our entire friend group to stop talking to me. They knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but somehow it was still my fault that Ethan had unresolved feelings towards me. I was and still am an introvert, and most of my friends back then were hers. It wasn't surprising that they followed her lead when she turned against me. They were always her friends, not mine. Anna and my ex-classmates then painted me as a villain to the other friends from high school. Ethan didn't do anything to help me because he was manipulated to hate me. His words, not mine. That's why I changed my number and deleted all my social media accounts. While no one directly bombarded me with mean messages, I constantly saw posts that seemed to be aimed at me, even though my name was never mentioned. Ethan only revealed everything to the other friends after his divorce with Anna was finalized. Now Anna and my ex-classmates are the ones being shunned by the others since 2 years ago. Ethan said he owed me an apology, though he knew it wouldn't be enough after everything that happened. While he never smeared my name, he stood on the sidelines and did nothing simply because I supposedly rejected him and called him an abandoned orphan during high school. He asked me if I will be going to the upcoming reunion party. Turns out, the reunion party this time was for the 1995 high school batch. My ex-classmates probably want their former class president to attend for appearances. I told him I won't go. He said I can sit with him and his ex-classmates if I wanted to. Why would I bother? I told him I wouldn't be attending because I have no friends from high school. He mentioned that the others would be sad if they heard I said that. Well, screw them. I received a lot more messages from old friends, but I didn't respond to any of them. I have no attachment towards them. I told Anna that Ethan already told me everything. She called me on Messenger again, sobbing. She admitted she might have been a terrible friend, but that she did care about me all those years. I was always on her mind. I was too attached to her back then because she was my first real friend, as I had no friends in middle school. I was too shy and quiet, so I couldn't make friends. Anna taught me how to make friends and overcome my social anxiety and introduced a lot of people to me. I learned to cook for her and took care of her when she was sick. I even protected her from creeps. Everything I did was for her. Now that I think about it, it was kind of unhealthy. Maybe she wanted me to be that version of myself again, only for her convenience. She begged me to try again, that she would be a better person for me, but I just ended the call and blocked her. After a few minutes of contemplating, I decided to delete my Facebook account again. I have a feeling that if I didn't, they will keep on bothering me. I'll settle with a fake account. The main reason why I made my Facebook account is to play Harvest Town. Anyway, sorry for the long post. This will be my one and only update. I want to thank the 4 people who personally messaged me on Reddit. Your messages meant a lot, as not many people have done so much for me in my life. I hope my update answered your questions. Farewell. Additional information from OP on clarifying her timeline. English is not my first language. We were born in 1995. What I meant was reunion for year 1995 students. Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1. 'Cause perhaps in a way she was. For all we know, she liked OP romantically and simply never admitted those feelings. Perhaps even to herself. 'Cause even if it isn't strange for a mean girl to lie about the interest a boy she likes has for her friend, it is odd to do it to all love interests. So how do I know? I'm a bisexual woman. Admitting to myself that I liked other girls as a teenager wasn't easy. OP, do you really think so? I thought it was normal between female best friends to hold hands and sleep together. I'm bisexual too. Comment 2. It's brave of you to confront your past. You're not obligated to forgive anyone. Prioritize your own peace and build healthy relationships moving forward. OP, thank you. I really do feel indifferent now. It has been 6 years and I have better friends now. I'm content with my life. Comment 3. Nothing weird about holding hands and sleeping together with full clothing on and just sleeping in the same bed. But rejecting all potential love interests is a red flag. OP. Me and Anna never did anything, but she would always lean on my shoulder and hug me when sleeping. She always insisted that I sleep over at her house on the weekend. Comment 4. Perhaps Anna had feelings for you. This doesn't excuse any of her shitty behavior. Honestly, it reminds me of a popular girl I knew in high school who liked me, but we were very incompatible, so I rejected her. Let me tell you, she made my life as hard as she could for as long as we were in the same class. It doesn't excuse any of Anna's awful behavior, but it is a possibility. I doubt it honestly. Maybe she just likes the idea of being taken care of. She had no problems throwing me away for Ethan. But now that I think about it, our dynamic was weird. And maybe this is too much information. I didn't date back then and only hooked up with people because Anna didn't like them and she didn't agree. And now I have trust issues and I'm too afraid to commit in a relationship. It's not that I like to cheat or anything. I'm just too afraid to trust my life and my heart to someone else again. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Mill spiked my cake with something she knew I was allergic to and told me it was a prank at her birthday party. She did it because people were paying more attention to my pregnancy than her. I can't believe I am even writing this, but my Mill just tried to do something to me last week. My mother-in-law threw a birthday party for herself. Over the years, she always goes all out for her birthdays. Every year, it's a grand affair, and this year was no exception. She decided to have a cowboy-themed party, complete with all the bells and whistles. Everyone attending was required to dress up in full cowboy attire. Think boots, hats, and flannel shirts. It wasn't just a casual get-together. She really expected everyone to show up and join in with enthusiasm. Now, I'm currently pregnant with my first baby, and it hasn't been the easiest journey so far. I've been feeling completely exhausted, partly because I've been struggling with anemia during the pregnancy. This means I have to be really careful about how much I exert myself. I try to avoid unnecessary stress, and to be honest, I've skipped quite a few social gatherings lately to prioritize my health. Going to parties or events just feels like a lot right now, especially since I need to rest more than usual. A few days before the party, my Mill called my husband and made a big deal about how I absolutely had to be there. She put so much pressure on him, saying that my presence was mandatory and that I couldn't just skip this event with excuses like I had for other family occasions. She made it clear that she expected me to show up no matter how tired I was. So, even though I didn't feel up to it, I felt like I had no choice but to attend, just to keep the peace. It was either that or deal with even more stress from her taunting me about my absence later on. The day of her birthday party, before we left, I made it clear to my husband, Nate, that if I started feeling unwell or uncomfortable at any point, I wasn't going to stick around. I told him I would head straight back home if things got too overwhelming. He seemed to understand and completely agreed, even promising that if I wanted to leave, he would come back with me. That gave me some reassurance for the event. Later, when we arrived at the venue, We were immediately greeted by several family members. As is often the case when you're pregnant, people started gravitating towards me, touching my belly and talking to it in those babyish, overly sweet voices, as if the baby could somehow hear and respond. They buzzed around me, showering me with congratulations about becoming a mother soon, which was kind but also a bit overwhelming. Meanwhile, my Mill just smiled at me briefly, hugged my husband, and then walked off to join her friends. She didn't say much to me at all, just seemed eager to get back to guests and enjoy the festivities she had planned. I could tell she was in full party host mode, mingling and soaking up the attention from everyone there. Throughout the first half of the party, several family members and guests were constantly coming up to me to either talk to me about the pregnancy or give me various advice about becoming a first-time parent. I quietly tried to excuse myself from the crowd so I could get a break. When I finally found a quiet spot to sit down, I was grateful to be able to catch my breath. Thankfully, my husband's cousin, Robin, came over to keep me company. Robin and I have always had a good relationship. She and my husband were very close growing up, so naturally, we became friends after I married into the family. She's one of the few people who really gets me, and she knows how much I've been avoiding social events lately, especially now that I'm pregnant. As she sat down beside me, she immediately cracked a joke, saying how surprised she was to actually see me at the party, considering how I've been staying home more often. She teased that if I hadn't shown up, Mill would have definitely given her and my husband an earful for letting me get away with it. We both laughed at that because we knew it was true. My Mill isn't shy about voicing her disappointment when things don't go the way she expects, and she would have had a lot to say if I had skipped her birthday party. As we continued chatting, catching up about life and the pregnancy, my Mill suddenly came over. She didn't sit down or join in the conversation. She just looked me up and down and then, without any hesitation, told me how different I looked since the last time she saw me. The way she said it caught me a little off guard, and for a second I wasn't sure how to respond. For context, even though my Mill lives in the same city as us, she rarely visits us at our home. It's not like she's far away, but for some reason, she just doesn't seem to enjoy coming over. My husband and I used to go and visit her pretty regularly, almost every other weekend, but ever since I got pregnant, I've had to cut back on those visits because it's just been too exhausting. I thought it would have been nice if Mill had come to visit me instead, especially with everything I've been going through, but she never did. It had probably been about 2 or 3 months since she'd last seen me in person, so it's natural that I would have changed. Pregnancy has been taking its toll, and of course I look different now than I did a few months ago. Still, the way she pointed it out felt a bit off. Mill then followed up by bluntly saying I look so much fatter than ever. I felt an immediate rush of embarrassment. I tried to play it off with an awkward laugh, but inside, I felt uncomfortable and self-conscious. Thankfully, Robin quickly came to my defense. She gestured towards my growing belly and firmly reminded Mill that of course I was going to gain weight. I was pregnant after all. However, Mill didn't seem fazed. In fact, she scoffed almost dismissively and replied with a bit of smugness that she never put on any weight when she was pregnant with my husband. As if that wasn't enough, she went on to comment about how lethargic I looked for just sitting around during her party without mingling with the guests, adding that when she was pregnant, she had been incredibly active and full of energy. Her comparison felt like a direct dig at me, like she was implying I wasn't handling pregnancy as well as she had. I couldn't just sit there quietly anymore. I pushed back, pointing out that there were clear differences between her situation and mine. She had my husband when she got accidentally pregnant after high school and had given up college to become a full-time mother, so she was quite young, whereas I'm in my late mid-30s with existing health issues. Therefore, pregnancy is going to affect me differently. It's only natural that my body needs more rest given the circumstances. The moment I pointed out the differences, I could tell she didn't take it well. Her face turned red, clearly offended by my response. It was as if I had crossed a line by reminding her about her past. Sensing the tension rising, Robin quickly tried to steer the conversation away in a different direction. She complimented Mill on how fantastic her party was, pointing out the decorations, the theme, and the effort that went into organizing everything. That seemed to do the trick because Mill immediately latched onto the opportunity to talk about herself. She started praising her own party, going on a bit of a rant about how she had come up with such an original idea about the theme of her party all on her own and how great she was to her friends for helping put it together. After that, she drifted off to mingle with her other friends, leaving me relieved that the awkward conversation had seemingly been forgotten. When it came time for the cake cutting, my husband took charge of bringing out the cake for Mill. He carefully placed the candles on top, and we all gathered around to sing for her. Mill, of course, beamed with pride, soaking up the attention. My husband and father-in-law then asked me to come stand with them near Mill for pictures and videos. I wasn't too keen on it, mostly because I was already feeling drained, but I obliged because they seemed insistent. As I moved to stand beside Mill for the photos, people began to crowd around, complimenting us both. They made comments like, "Oh, you two look so beautiful together," and "You could be sisters." Some even chimed in with, "We can't wait for the baby to arrive. It's going to be so exciting," and joked how Mill is going to be a grandma very soon. Hearing this, I could see Mill's expression shift ever so slightly. There was a flicker of irritation in her eyes. The sister-sister comparison, while well-meaning from the guests, seemed to hit a nerve with her. It was as if the spotlight, which she clearly wanted to be solely on her, was now being divided, and that wasn't something she appreciated. She remained polite, smiling for the cameras, but I could feel the tension building, and honestly, I just wanted the whole photo session to be over. I didn't want to steal any of her thunder, especially on her big day. Later, during lunch, I was about to finish my meal when I got surrounded by some of Mill's friends in the kitchen. Her friends started talking about how my skin was glowing due to the pregnancy and how Mill looked exactly like me back then. I smiled and nodded politely, not really engaging but doing my best to stay respectful. Then, out of nowhere, Mill interrupted their conversation with a dismissive tone. She shot down their compliments by saying she looked nothing like me when she was pregnant. She emphasized and pointed out how I had fat arms and ridiculous-looking calves because of my pregnancy, which she claimed was never the case for her. Her words stung, and I could feel the heat rising to my face as I tried to keep my composure. However, her friends started to tease her by reminding her of how she had actually put on weight and how she had lost so much hair during her pregnancy that she was almost bald at one point. They even joked about her arms being shaggy, recalling memories from those days. I could see Mill's expression shift from smug satisfaction to barely concealed anger. The tables had turned on her. Mill sat there visibly fuming as her friends continued reminiscing about her pregnancy. They'd known her since college, so they had first-hand knowledge of how she looked back then, and they weren't holding back. I realized that while Mill had been doing her hardest to embarrass me, to make me feel insecure in front of her friends, she'd ended up being the one embarrassed by the very people who knew her best. They weren't being mean, but their honest memories were enough to undercut Mill's attempt to humiliate me. It was a small, unexpected victory for me, so I just kept quiet and let her stew in the awkwardness of the moment. Later, I politely excused myself from the group, saying I urgently needed to use the restroom, hoping that now they would leave me alone. However, when I emerged from the bathroom, I was surprised to find my mother-in-law waiting for me. She asked if I wasn't feeling well, and I, not wanting to escalate anything, simply told her the lunch had been a bit too heavy for me. That's when she scoffed, almost as if she'd been waiting for an opportunity to pounce. Without missing a beat, she said, "Maybe I should just go back home if I wasn't feeling well." Her tone wasn't kind or concerned. It was dismissive, like she was trying to push me out of the party. I was caught off guard by how direct she was being, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she could just send me packing. So I calmly told her that I was feeling just fine and that I could stay for a while longer. She then doubled down and told me there was no need for me to stress myself out by staying even a minute longer. She even offered to call me an Uber, as if she couldn't wait to get me out of there. I politely declined again, telling her my husband would drive me home when it was time to leave. But she argued that her son needed to be at her birthday party, that his presence was important, but that my presence was not required any longer. The way she said it made it clear that she thought I was somehow intruding on her special day, even though she had been the one to insist on my attendance in the first place. As she kept repeating that I could just leave, I started getting irritated. So I finally asked her outright why she suddenly wanted me to leave so badly. That's when she dropped the facade. She told me exactly what I had suspected, that I was stealing the spotlight from her birthday with my pregnant belly. According to her, all anyone could talk about at the party was the baby when this was supposed to be her day. She made it clear she had only wanted me here so that people didn't question her about my absence, but now that I had shown my face to everyone, she felt that the right thing for me to do now would be to leave so she could enjoy the rest of her party without feeling like I was taking away the attention she deserved. Her words stung. I hadn't come to her party to take anything away from her, but now she was making me feel like my pregnancy was somehow an offense, as if my very presence was ruining her day. It was frustrating and hurtful to hear her say those things. Now here she was, practically pushing me out the door because she felt threatened by the fact that people were showing excitement over the baby. Feeling overwhelmed by what had just happened with Mill and her friends, I turned around and decided I needed to find my husband, Nate, immediately. I spotted him across the room chatting with some guests and made my way over. When I reached him, I told him that Mill had made it clear she wanted me to leave, and he was just as surprised as I was. He asked if something had happened between us to trigger her behavior, and that's when I told him everything. How Mill had been making rude remarks about my appearance and how she tried to embarrass me in front of her friends, but that it had backfired on her. Nate looked visibly pissed as I recounted the story. He immediately said he would go talk to her and sort it out. I didn't know what he and his mother discussed afterward, but he came back and told me that his mother was just in one of her moods, and that I should not take it seriously. Apparently, she had let me stay for the rest of the party. I told my husband I wanted to leave as I was starting to get irritated with his mother's antics, but Nate urged me to stay for just an hour longer and promised to then drive me back home. I foolishly agreed. A little while later, as I was trying to enjoy the rest of the event with Robin, Mill approached me again, this time holding a plate of cake. She looked a bit more subdued than before. To my surprise, she told me that she felt terrible about the way she had spoken to me earlier and explained that she had had a few too many drinks that had apparently affected her judgment. She offered me the cake as a peace offering, saying it was her way of letting go of the tension between us. I just politely smiled, thanked her, and took a bite of the cake. Initially, I didn't find anything wrong with the cake, but after a few minutes, a strange sensation crept in. Started subtly, just a bit of discomfort, but then quickly escalated. I began to feel like my throat was tightening, almost like it was slowly closing up, and I was struggling to catch my breath. At first, I thought maybe I had swallowed something wrong, so I instinctively put the plate down and began thumping my chest, trying to clear whatever I thought might be stuck. Robin looked concerned as well. The feeling kept getting worse, and before I knew it, I was out of my chair, gasping for air, panicking as it became harder and harder to breathe. Robin was shouting next to me, asking me what was wrong. I was on my knees, clutching my stomach in fear. All I could think about was my baby. I was terrified, not just for myself but for my unborn child. I didn't care what happened to me. I just needed my baby to be okay. In the blur of panic, I saw Nate rushing toward me, his face filled with fear, but everything after that became hazy. When I woke up next, I was in a hospital bed. I felt confused about everything and saw Nate sitting beside me. He looked so relieved to see me awake, but there was something else in his expression. Guilt. I'd been with him for a long time, so I could sense it right away. Even before I asked him what had happened, he told me how I had fainted and he had rushed me over to the hospital. He assured me that the baby and I were going to be okay. He didn't mention anything more than this. Later, when the doctor came to speak to me, I began to piece together what had actually happened. The doctor explained that I had likely been poisoned, which triggered my body to react this way. Poisoned? Couldn't wrap my mind around it. The doctor asked me what I had eaten before the incident, and that's when I remembered the cake Mill had given me. I told the doctor about it, and he informed me that the cake might have contained soy, a food I am severely allergic to. I was shocked. Everyone in my husband's family knows about my allergy to soy. Hence, I am pretty sure that the cake at Mill's party did not have soy since I had eaten a piece of the cake earlier, even before Mill had offered it to me. But now the doctor was saying that the cake likely contained soy, and that's what triggered the severe allergic reaction. I was taken aback, confused, and honestly scared. How could this have happened? I turned to look at my husband, Nate, who had been quiet throughout all this. The doctor excused himself, allowing us some privacy, and I took that opportunity to ask the question that had been nagging at me since I woke up. Did the cake really have soy in it? I pressed, needing to know for sure. Nate hesitated, his eyes darting away from mine as if he was reluctant to answer. I could sense that he was holding back, so I pushed him to open up. Please, just tell me the truth, I urged. After a moment of silence, he finally confessed. When he saw me collapse, he rushed to find out what had happened and learned from the guests that Mill had been the one who had given me the cake I was eating. His voice trembled slightly as he recounted the confrontation he had with her. When he confronted his mother about it, she tearfully admitted that she had added just a few drops of soy milk into the cake before giving it to me. The reason? She wanted me to feel a bit unwell so that I would just go home and the guests would stop talking about me and my baby at her party. My stomach dropped at the realization that she had intentionally put me in harm's way just to get me away from her stupid birthday party. The sheer malice behind her actions left me speechless, and I felt an overwhelming surge of anger. My emotions boiled over, and I threatened to file a case against his mother for poisoning me and for putting me in a life-or-death situation where I could have potentially lost my child. I felt justified in my anger. However, Nate argued with me to not go through with it. He told me that while he understood that what his mother did was wrong, he didn't want her arrested. Even now, as I am writing this, he keeps saying, "You have to think this through before taking such a drastic step and reporting my mom." His words feel like a slap in the face, and I am struggling to comprehend how he could possibly defend her actions in any way. He insists that this is a family matter and we should resolve it without involving the police. Am I the a-hole for wanting to report my Mill after what she has done to me? Date 1. It's been 2 days since my last update. After everything that had happened, my parents, who live in another city, decided to fly in and stay with me while I could recover at home. They were understandably upset and very concerned after hearing about the incident. The moment they found out the details, they wanted me to go straight to the police station and file a complaint against Mill, and that's exactly what we did. I feel relieved at finally taking some action. Later, when Nate found out what we had done, he completely lost his mind. It was as if a switch flipped in him, and he started telling me and my parents how we shouldn't have taken such a drastic step without talking to him first. He insisted that his mother didn't have any ill intentions toward me and began reminding me of all the times Mill had supposedly helped me, which felt utterly ridiculous, given that she hardly ever came to visit or had offered any real support during my pregnancy. My mother, who had been trying to stay calm, told him firmly that as my husband, he needed to grow a spine and stand up for me and our baby instead of catering to his mother and trying to protect her when what she did to me was a crime. My dad also chimed in, saying, "Nate, your mother made the decision to poison my pregnant daughter. Instead of standing here arguing about your crazy family, you should be more worried about your wife and your unborn child. What if your wife had lost her life all because your mother felt threatened by people talking about your wife's pregnancy? If that were the case, then why did your mother even invite her in the first place?" Her words struck home, and I could see how embarrassed Nate felt at the moment. He did try to argue further, but my parents weren't having it. They stood their ground, insisting that my health and the safety of our baby came first. I feel so grateful for my parents' support. I need my husband to understand now the seriousness of what has happened and to hopefully choose our family over his mother. This is no longer just about a birthday party gone wrong. It is about the safety and well-being of our growing family. What if tomorrow his mother harms our child because she is again jealous of us? What will we do then? Update 2. I forgot to add this earlier in my last update, but yes, Mill has called to apologize to me repeatedly since the incident. Each time I've only ignored her. I am not ready to accept her apologies, especially not when they feel so insincere and forced. Meanwhile, Nate has been moping around the house, refusing to talk to me. He's expressed how I'm being a party pooper for making his mother feel bad and guilty after her multiple apologies. He told me I should strive to be a better DIL by letting this matter slide for the sake of his family. It feels infuriating to hear my husband say that. He seems more concerned about his mother's feelings than my health and safety. I'm seriously considering leaving him, Update 3. It's been a month and a half since my last update. Thanks to everyone's suggestions, I have filed for divorce from my husband since our relationship just kept getting worse and worse. You see, after I filed my police complaint, my mill was arrested as the evidence against her was overwhelming. Multiple witnesses, including Robin, confirmed that she had been the one to give me the cake. While questioning, Mill also confessed to mixing soy into my cake so she could intentionally make me sick. As a result, she was charged with endangerment and intentionally causing bodily harm to both me and my baby. Ever since her arrest and eventual bail, Nate and my in-laws have continued to blame me for putting my poor Mill through such a hard time. Instead of rallying around me during such a traumatic experience, they are choosing to sympathize with the person who knowingly endangered my life and the life of our child. My husband's refusal to take my side has been particularly painful, so I believe divorcing him is the only option left. Hence, in light of all this, my parents and I made the difficult decision that I needed to return home with them, where I would feel much safer. There was no guarantee that his mother or his family wouldn't show up and cause me more trouble, especially given the volatile nature of the situation. However, when Nate found out about my plans to leave him and move back in with my parents, he became aggressive. He went on a rant about how I was ruining everything and that all I had to do was just keep my mouth shut and let the matter go so we could put this to rest. He accused me of making everything worse by taking his baby away from him when he was already losing his mother also. Update 4. To answer some of your questions, Nate has always had a short temper similar to his mother. But since the incident, his anger has only intensified towards me. Currently, I am at my parents' home and feel much safer to be away from him. Phil has apologized to me for what his wife did, but just like Nate, he believes that I betrayed them by going to the police. He told me that I could have just talked things over with the family. Mill has always been self-centered, but she has never physically harmed me this way, so this is the first time that anything like this has happened. But I don't want to ever give her another chance. Since the incident, I've been struggling to even eat food because I can't shake the fear that someone might poison me again. Even though my parents are always cautious and I trust them completely, the emotional toll this incident has taken on me is something my mother-in-law will never be able to repay. Update 5. I guess it's been a few months since my last update. I've given birth, and both my baby and I are doing well. The divorce with my ex-husband was quick, thanks to the prenup we had in place. He is still furious with me over what has happened to his mother and blames me entirely for her punishment. Other than child support, he made it clear that he wants nothing to do with our child. Hence, I've been granted full custody, and Nate has signed away all his parental rights. As for my ex-mother-in-law, she received an 8-month jail sentence and was ordered to pay a significant fine, along with covering all my medical expenses and therapy related to the incident. I have also got a restraining order against her, ensuring that she can never come near me or my baby again. I'm staying at my parents' house for now, where we're both secure and supported, and I feel a sense of relief knowing I can raise my child in a safe environment. I'll continue to live here until I can find a job and move out on my own. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Ex-wife left me alone with our baby without leaving anything behind. 5 years later, she wants to meet our daughter because her new boyfriend found out she has a child. From the time I was young, my biggest dream was always to have a happy family of my own and to become a father one day. I know that for some people this might sound cliché or perhaps even a bit old-fashioned, but for me, it was something deeply rooted in my heart. Growing up, I was fortunate enough to be raised by two incredible parents who had a relationship that I can only describe as truly special. My parents' relationship was a beacon of love and stability, something I admired and aspired to emulate. They met in high school, and even from those early days, it was clear to everyone that they were meant for each other. As a child, I noticed how they always treated each other with a deep sense of respect and kindness, no matter the situation. They weren't just married. They were best friends who shared a bond that was evident in everything they did. Seeing this day in and day out made me want that for myself. I didn't just want to get married to anybody one day. I wanted to find my own best friend, someone with whom I could build a life full of love, laughter, and mutual respect. And more than anything, I longed to be a father, to have children who would grow up in the same kind of loving environment that I did. Because of my strong desire to have a meaningful and lasting relationship, I was always very careful and selective when it came to dating. I wasn't the kind of person who would jump into casual relationships just for the sake of it. I knew what I wanted, and I was determined to find someone who shared the same values and goals for the future. In high school, I did have a girlfriend, and I truly believed that she could be the one. I put my heart into that relationship, doing everything I could to make it work. But, alas, the relationship did not work out. I guess sometimes people can grow in different directions, and that's exactly what happened with us. We simply grew apart, and eventually we had to accept that we weren't meant to be together. When I went to college, I wasn't really expecting to meet anyone special. I had decided to focus on my studies and personal growth, figuring that if the right person came along, it would happen naturally. I wasn't in any rush, and I certainly wasn't actively seeking out a relationship. But as life often has a way of surprising us, out of nowhere, Bonnie walked into my life. Bonnie was unlike anyone I had ever met before. She is the kind of girl who would immediately catch everyone's attention the moment she enters a room. There was always something about her that was simply magnetic. She had this incredible energy. She was free-spirited and full of life, and her happiness was contagious. It wasn't just her looks, though she was undeniably beautiful. It was her personality that truly made her stand out. She had a way of making everyone around her feel alive, and people couldn't help but be drawn to her because of this. Because of this, I never thought anything would happen between us since she and I were so different. Bonnie seemed so out of reach, like someone who belonged to a different world. I was content to just be her friend, enjoying the times we spent together in our group of friends without expecting anything more. But then, after several months of just being friends, Bonnie called me one afternoon and confessed that she had a crush on me and that she wanted to go out on a date. I will admit, it took me a moment to process what she was saying because it was so far from anything I had imagined. Bonnie, the girl who could have had anyone she wanted, had feelings for someone like me. It was a moment that completely changed the course of my life. Of course, our first date went really well, and I remember being on cloud 9 afterward. We kept going on more and more dates, and eventually, Bonnie became my girlfriend. In the beginning, as with most new relationships, I saw Bonnie through rose-colored glasses. Everything she did seemed perfect to me. I was so infatuated with her that I couldn't see any flaws, or if I did, I brushed them off as insignificant. But as time went on and we got to know each other more deeply, I began to notice a few things that gave me pause, what you might call red flags. They weren't necessarily deal breakers, but they were traits that made me uncomfortable and caused me to question certain aspects of our relationship. One of the first things I noticed was that Bonnie had a tendency to look down on anyone who disagreed with her, whether they were right or wrong. She was very confident in her opinions, which wasn't a bad thing, but she took it to an extreme. If someone had a different perspective and chose to voice it, Bonnie would immediately get defensive. Instead of engaging in a healthy discussion, she would start calling them out, often labeling them as stupid or ignorant. This trait made social situations with her quite tense at times. I still remember so many of my friends getting uncomfortable with the way Bonnie behaved towards them. Another thing that became increasingly apparent was her mood swings. Bonnie's moods could change in the blink of an eye, and these shifts were often extreme. There were days when she was full of energy, ready to take on the world. She would ask me to skip classes and go out partying with her, sometimes with people we barely knew. During these parties, she would do things that were frankly outrageous, things that left me feeling uneasy. But then, out of nowhere, her mood would shift completely. She would become withdrawn and distant and ask me to take her back home. She would then lock herself in her room for days without any explanation. These emotional ups and downs were hard for me to navigate. Bonnie's temper was another issue that became more evident as time went on. She could go from being calm to incredibly angry in a matter of seconds. When she got angry, it was intense. Her anger would escalate quickly, and she would sometimes lash out physically. I remember times when she would punch her fist into a wall or kick a trash bin in frustration. On a few occasions, she came dangerously close to hurting someone. These outbursts were frightening, and they made me realize that there was a side to Bonnie that I hadn't seen when we first started dating. As much as I cared for Bonnie, these red flags were becoming harder to ignore. As we continued to date, I found myself torn between the girl I had fallen for and the reality of the person she was showing herself to be. The incident that finally pushed me to confront Bonnie about everything wrong with our relationship happened due to an incident at a movie theater. You see, my guy friend had invited both Bonnie and me to watch a movie with him and his girlfriend. I thought it would be a nice double date, so I asked Bonnie if she wanted to join us. To my surprise, she immediately refused, saying she didn't like my friend's girlfriend. When I pressed her for a reason, she couldn't give me anything concrete, just that she didn't like the girl. This wasn't unusual for Bonnie. She often got into feuds with people without any legitimate reason, and she never really explained her dislikes. So I didn't take her refusal too seriously. I told her that I was going to watch the movie anyway, and she was welcome to come if she changed her mind. What happened next was something I never saw coming. Imagine my surprise when, during the movie, Bonnie walked into the theater looking for me. At first, I thought she might have changed her mind and decided to join us. But then, out of nowhere, she came up to me and started screaming at me in front of everyone. She accused me of sleeping with my friend's girlfriend, claiming that was the real reason why I had insisted on coming to the movie with him and his girlfriend, even though she did not want to go. She also claimed that clearly, I preferred other girls over her, and this was why she had come here to confront me. I was completely blindsided. Her outburst was so loud and aggressive that the entire theater turned to look at us. My guy friend and his girlfriend were understandably shocked and offended. They tried to defend themselves and me, but Bonnie wasn't having any of it. She loudly told them to stay out of it, insisting that this was between her and me. The situation quickly escalated, and I could feel the eyes of everyone in the theater on us. It was incredibly embarrassing. I didn't know what to do, so I just got up and walked out of the theater, leaving the movie unfinished. Bonnie followed me all the way to my car, still yelling at me, calling me a cheater, and refusing to let it go. Up until that point, I hadn't said a word. I had let her vent, hoping she would eventually calm down, and then I could explain myself. But as I watched her continue to scream at me, something inside me snapped. I had reached my limit. I turned to her, and for the first time I yelled back. I told her that I was done with her, that she had crossed a line this time, and that I didn't want to be with someone who treated me this way. I remember telling her with all the frustration and hurt that had built up over the months that I couldn't be with an abuser like her. The words came out with more force than I had intended, but they were the truth. I realized that Bonnie had been emotionally abusive throughout our relationship, and I had ignored the warning signs for too long. Her outburst in the theater was the final straw, the moment when I realized that I couldn't keep making excuses for her behavior. I knew I deserved better than this. I went on to tell her exactly how embarrassed and hurt I was by her accusation. I couldn't believe that she would even suspect, let alone publicly accuse me, of something so outrageous. Sleeping with my own buddy's girlfriend. It felt like a deep betrayal of trust, and I told her in no uncertain terms that she had no right to come into that theater and accuse me like that in front of everyone without talking to me first. As I spoke, I could see the realization dawn on her face. Bonnie's eyes widened, and I watched as she started to backtrack, trying to take back what she had said. Her voice softened, and she began to apologize. But by then, the damage was done. I shook my head, feeling a mix of disappointment and frustration. I told her to get out of my car, that I didn't want to drive her home. I needed space to clear my head and to distance myself from the chaos that had just unfolded. But as soon as those words left my mouth, Bonnie broke down completely. She burst into tears, her whole body shaking with the intensity of her sobs. For a moment, my anger wavered. Watching her fall apart like that, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. This was someone I had cared about deeply, and seeing her in such distress triggered an instinct to comfort her. As she cried, Bonnie kept apologizing over and over, saying she didn't want to lose me. She started talking about how her brain sometimes gets all jumbled up and how she doesn't always know how to control her thoughts or emotions. Her voice was filled with desperation, and it was clear that she was terrified of losing me. Confused by what she was saying, I asked her to explain what she meant, but instead of giving me a clear answer, Bonnie kept repeating that if she told me the truth, I would leave her. She talked about how she felt like she had to keep her other self hidden, and that made me even more confused. I didn't know what to make of it, but I knew we couldn't keep going in circles. I told her she had no other choice. Either she told me the truth and let me decide if I wanted to stay with her, or she walked out of my car and we would end things right then and there. It was a difficult ultimatum, but I needed to understand what was really going on. After a few moments of hesitation, Bonnie, still weeping, finally confessed something that took me by surprise. She told me that she had bipolar disorder, something her mother also suffered from. She had apparently been hiding this information from everyone, as she was ashamed of it and wished she was just normal. Hearing this, I was taken aback. I definitely didn't expect her to have BPD, but also at that moment, so much of her behavior started to make more sense. The extreme mood swings, the outbursts, the unpredictability, it all seemed to align with what I knew about bipolar disorder. Bonnie went on to explain that whenever she stopped taking her medication, her mind would fog up, and she would start behaving irrationally. She said that wasn't who she truly was, and that she hated how her disorder made her act. I asked her why she would stop taking her meds if she knew it made her worse, and Bonnie told me, with tears streaming down her face, that she just wanted to live her life like everyone else, and she hated the fact that she couldn't. She would get tired of feeling sick, tired of the side effects, tired of the constant reminder that she had to depend on medication just to function. Her words were filled with pain and frustration, and as I looked into her eyes, I could see how much she was struggling. It broke my heart a little to see her like this, to realize how much she had been silently battling. At that moment, I felt a mix of emotions: sympathy, sadness, and a deep sense of conflict. On one hand, I now understood that her behavior wasn't entirely within her control, that it was part of a larger struggle she was dealing with. But on the other hand, I couldn't ignore how her actions had affected me, how difficult it had been to be on the receiving end of her outbursts and erratic behavior. Although I was also young, I already knew that loving someone with a mental health condition like bipolar disorder required a lot of understanding, patience, and commitment, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. However, I realized that I loved Bonnie and couldn't just walk away without at least trying to make things work. Despite everything, there was a deep connection between us, and I didn't want to throw it away without giving her and us a chance to improve. So, we sat down and had a serious discussion about what needed to change for our relationship to continue. I told her that the only way we could move forward was if she committed to seeing a therapist who specialized in bipolar disorder so she could learn to better manage her emotions and behavior. I also emphasized that she needed to take her medication consistently, without any more lapses. The conversation wasn't easy. It was emotional and raw. Bonnie could see how serious I was, and I could tell she was scared of losing me. But to her credit, she understood where I was coming from and promised to do whatever it took to get better for us. I made it clear that this was her last chance. Over the next few months, Bonnie kept her word. She began seeing a therapist who helped her navigate the complexities of living with bipolar disorder. She also made sure to take her medication consistently, recognizing that it was essential for her well-being and for our relationship. It wasn't a smooth or easy journey by any means. There were still tough days for us. But gradually, Bonnie started to learn how to manage her feelings more effectively and to be kinder to herself. As Bonnie made progress in therapy and began to stabilize emotionally, our relationship improved significantly. There were things she had always held back before, but now she started to let me in. The more she opened up, the closer we became, and our relationship got deeper and more meaningful. When we graduated college, it felt like the natural next step for Bonnie and me to move in together. We were committed to each other and knew that this was what we wanted for our future. We both had our own successful careers, and we managed to create a balanced life together. We were diligent about saving and investing our money, with the goal of eventually buying our own house and getting married. It felt like life was on track. We were building something solid and meaningful together. Then one day, Bonnie discovered that she was pregnant. This news took me by surprise. I hadn't really thought about becoming a father just yet, but after taking some time to process the news, I found myself feeling okay with it. We were both earning well, and I knew we could afford to take care of a baby. More than that, I started to embrace the idea of starting a family with Bonnie. It felt like another step forward in our journey together. But Bonnie didn't feel the same way. She was deeply conflicted about the pregnancy. She even broke down in front of me and confessed that she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. As much as I was excited about the idea of having a child, I believed that it was ultimately up to her to decide what to do with her body. I was upset, of course. I had already started to picture our future with a baby, but I knew I had to support Bonnie, no matter how much it hurt. I told her that I would stand by her decision, whatever it was. We scheduled an appointment at a clinic for the procedure, and I tried to be as supportive as possible, even though I was hurting inside. However, when the day of the appointment arrived, Bonnie decided not to go at the last minute. She was overwhelmed with guilt and confusion. She told me that the thought of getting rid of the baby was too much for her to bear. I did my best to console her, holding her as she cried and reassuring her that if she decided to have the baby, I would do everything in my power to be the best father I could be. I promised to be an equal partner in parenting, to share the responsibilities, and to ensure that she didn't feel burdened by it. In the end, she agreed to go through with the pregnancy. Bonnie's pregnancy journey was anything but easy. She was overwhelmed with fear and anxiety, constantly worried about losing our baby because of her BPD. This is why she stopped taking her medications, as she believed it could affect the baby. As a result, her mood swings became more intense during her pregnancy. Her anger flared up frequently, and she was generally very difficult to live with during that time. There were days when it felt like we were back to square one, dealing with the same challenges we had faced before she started therapy. But I had made a promise to her that I would never leave, and I was determined to stick by those words, no matter how tough things got. During the 4th month of her pregnancy, Bonnie confided in me about the nightmares she was having frequently. She was terrified that I would leave her to raise our baby alone, especially since we weren't legally tied together by marriage. Hearing this broke my heart because it was the farthest thing from the truth. To ease her fears, I immediately went out and bought a ring. I proposed to Bonnie that very week, letting her know that I was all in, that I was here to stay. Our wedding happened quite quickly after that, but it was a beautiful, intimate ceremony. Both sides of our family were present and were thrilled for us. The day our daughter, Mary, was born, I was right there in the delivery room, standing beside Bonnie as she brought our little girl into the world. The moment Mary was born, the nurse handed her to me, and I couldn't hold back my tears. I looked at her tiny fingers and delicate little legs, and I was struck by how absolutely precious she was. Mary's birth brought a new sense of purpose into my life. It wasn't just about Bonnie and me anymore. It was about our little family. I was committed to making it work, devotedly. However, after we brought Mary home, I noticed a shift in Bonnie that I couldn't ignore. She seemed very distant and disconnected from our daughter. She never wanted to touch the baby and would only hold Mary when it was absolutely necessary, like during breastfeeding. Even then, it was clear she was doing it out of obligation rather than affection. I tried to be understanding. I knew that childbirth and the early days of motherhood could be overwhelming. I wanted to give Bonnie the space to rest and recover, so I took on as much of the household responsibilities as I could. I cooked her favorite meals, encouraged her to sleep in, and made sure she didn't have to lift a finger around the house. I was more than happy to care for our daughter, but it was impossible to ignore Bonnie's growing irritation and coldness. Whenever Mary cried, Bonnie would glare at her with a look that I could only describe as resentment. I began to worry that she might be experiencing postpartum depression, a condition I'd heard about but didn't fully understand. I gently suggested that she talk to a therapist about how she was feeling, hoping that professional help could make a difference. But Bonnie would snap at me, telling me to mind my own business and shut down any further conversation on the topic. Then one morning, about a month after Mary was born, I woke up to find Bonnie gone. Her side of the bed was empty. She was nowhere to be found in the house. At first, I tried not to panic, thinking she might have gone out to clear her head or grab a coffee. But as the hours passed and her phone remained switched off, my anxiety grew. I called her parents and friends, hoping she had decided to visit one of them, but no one had seen or heard from her. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach, Something was very wrong. Desperate for answers, I searched through our bedroom, trying to find any clue as to where she might have gone. As I rummaged through her drawer, I came across a diary tucked away in the corner. I hesitated, knowing it was a violation of her privacy to go through the diary, but curiosity got the best of me. I flipped through the pages and discovered that Bonnie had been writing secretly about her daily struggles, anger, and fear. I guess this was probably what her therapist had asked her to do. But as I was about to close the diary and put it back, my eyes accidentally landed on a page that stopped me cold. There, written in Bonnie's handwriting, were the words, "I wish I could kill Mary." I froze, unable to process what I had just read. My hand shook as I reread the sentence, hoping I had misunderstood. But deep down, I knew what those words meant. My wife was clearly struggling far more than she had let on, and she had reached a point where she saw our innocent daughter as a threat or worse, as something she needed to get rid of. I felt a mixture of fear, sorrow, and a deep sense of urgency. I called the police and reported Bonnie as missing, explaining the situation and the alarming diary entry. Then I reached out to our families, alerting them to what was happening. Her parents were understandably distressed and deeply concerned about their daughter. Eventually, the police located Bonnie at a motel. She admitted that she had fled home to prevent herself from harming Mary. Her parents took her in and sought immediate professional help to address her mental health issues. Over the weeks, Bonnie confided in them that she wanted a divorce from me because she felt she couldn't handle being married or living with a baby. This news left me heartbroken. I attempted to communicate with her, hoping to understand her perspective and find a way to resolve our issues. But Bonnie had already made up her mind. Her parents also supported her decision. So, in the end, I moved forward with the divorce and took full custody of our daughter. This all happened 5 years ago, and since then, I've been raising my daughter, Mary, as a single father, and we have come a long way. I've never brought up Bonnie to my daughter, feeling that she's still too young to understand, and fortunately, Mary hasn't asked many questions about her mother yet. However, today I am on Reddit because this week, out of the blue, Bonnie reached out to me. Since the divorce, my ex-wife hadn't attempted to contact me at all, and I had also respected her privacy. Over the years, I had, in fact, changed my number and moved to a new place to start fresh with Mary. Given all this, I was quite surprised to receive her call. To sum it up, Bonnie said she's in a much better place in her life and is now ready to meet Mary. I was taken aback by her words and reminded her of how she had been the one to walk away from us, so she couldn't just waltz back into our lives. Firmly, I told her I wasn't interested in reintroducing any drama into my daughter's life and wanted to protect her from potential instability. Hence, I wasn't going to allow her to meet my daughter until she was at least old enough to decide for herself. However, Bonnie argued that this was not fair, and I should give her a chance. I reminded her how she never gave us a chance and left me high and dry with a 1-month-old baby to take care of all by myself. Bonnie then pressed me, saying that she was dating someone new who had apparently discovered that she had a daughter. She implied that it would reflect poorly on her if she didn't make an effort to reconnect with us. Bonnie proposed that we meet just once, at least to discuss the future and see where things could go from there. I was pissed hearing this and told her that I did not care what her boyfriend thought of her and that my daughter and I were not her toys to play around with. Despite her continued pleas, I stood my ground and asked her not to reach out again. Since then, I've been feeling a bit guilty. Hence, I'd ask for your thoughts on whether I was wrong for not letting Bonnie into our lives again. Update 1. Thank you everyone for your responses. I am glad that a majority of you agree that I should not let my ex-wife anywhere near my daughter. I definitely made the right call. I also plan on finding out who shared my number with Bonnie since this was a breach of trust. Update 2. So I finally found out that it was my own mother who had shared my number with Bonnie behind my back. When I asked her about this, she confessed immediately that she had stayed in touch with Bonnie over the years. She said she had always felt sorry for her and believed that Bonnie and I were endgame. That's why she had shared my number, thinking it might lead to a reconciliation between Bonnie and me. I was furious when I heard this. I told my mother how delusional her thinking was. I reminded her of the countless nights I had spent alone, struggling to take care of my daughter without any support. I made it clear that Bonnie's BPD and her mood swings had severely impacted our lives. I told her how I had no intention of reintroducing chaos into my daughter's life. My mother did apologize, but I told her that if she ever gave Bonnie any more of our information, I would cut her out of my life and, by extension, my daughter's life as well. My father was also upset with my mother and fully supported my decision. Update 3. For everyone asking, Mary and I are doing okay. Bonnie tried reaching out a few more times after our last conversation, but I didn't answer her calls or listen to her voicemails. I've since blocked her number and am focusing on continuing our lives as we have been. I'm determined to maintain the stability and peace we've worked so hard to build for Mary and myself. Now on to the next story. Story 10. My friend's ex, who ghosted her and left without a trace, had the nerve to ask for a place in our home. This isn't my ex, but my best friend's ex. She and I have been friends for years and live together now, and now we live with my parents who adore her like their own daughter. I got her permission to post this. My friend, 30F, came to the US from Latin America at 19 as a student. She also started dating her ex, 29M, after many years of hanging with each other, both during vacations and online. I knew them both since HS, and they seemed good together. She tried to convince him to move together a few years before their breakup. He was living with his parents who wanted him to leave at this point. She had already finished college and had a job in the US that granted her a visa. He had quit college and worked part-time. From what I can gather, he didn't want to leave his parents' place because free food and no rent. So instead, she asked me if I wanted to move with her so we could afford a bigger place. I said yes, and we moved together, adopted a cat and a dog, and pretty much became Grace and Frankie. Around the start of the pandemic, things got bad for them. This is what I was told and what I saw. They never talked or hung out or anything. I was in a breakup at that time myself, so I wasn't really on top since I had my own issues, but my friend cried so much she didn't even get a happy birthday. After a year of no contact, she assumed the relationship was over. She changed all her social media to single, which he could see, took him off her emergency contacts at work and at her doctor, and just moved on with her life. This year, my stepdad's health has gone downhill, and my mom needs help caring for him. She works full-time as a therapist. I work from home and my job is very flexible, so I put in the idea of all of us living together and I'll care for my dad. Eventually, I'll care for my mom too. My mom loved the idea and asked my bestie if she wanted to move with us too so we could all be together, and also because at this point I can't see myself not being in the same house as her. We've come to terms in being single ladies. Heck, we've joked that one of us should adopt and we've become parent-slang dynamic, and now the joke is more serious since I'm considering it and she's incredibly supportive. No, we're not dating. She's straight, I'm bi. We're just incredibly close after all the BS we've lived through together. We found a perfect house. For bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, enough space, a yard, everything we need, and we got it after a bunch of difficulties and arrangements. Since I don't have immediate plans for adopting, I have a ton of paperwork and years of planning ahead. We made the extra room into our office/game hub. We both work at the same place. Totally not on purpose. They were hiring and we both needed visas. And as proud first-time homeowners, we posted pictures. Her ex, who by this point has been MIA for 3 years, messaged her saying he was so excited to move into the new house. She told him this was her house with me and my parents. He said since they were a couple, she should kick me and my parents so he could move in. I want to point out that my parents bought the house. My friend and I will pay them our parts over the years, and if she decides to move out, I'll finish paying and I'll buy her part out. This is all in paper and signed. So she obviously told him he was not moving with us and that he ghosted her, so there was no relationship. He went on a tirade that he never broke up with her, that she was abandoning him, that she never cared about him, etc. I got pissed off, took the phone from her, and told him he could live in a bear cave for all I care but to leave my friend and our house alone. He went ballistic and began calling us some names referring to the LGBTQ+ community that would probably get this post flagged. So I'll leave it to your imagination. My friend started crying and I was absolutely done with him. I never thought he was abusive, but my friend confessed to me that this was not new. He always had issues with the two of us living together, and accused her often of cheating on him with me. We ended the call and I told her she needed to block him for her own sanity's sake. She deserves so much better than this man-child. She got me to leave my abusive ex when I was in HS. She took me to the hospital when he beat me up and called my parents. My friend is family and I'll be dead before I let some bastard with commitment issues make her suffer. Since then, he's gone on a major campaign in our friend group to say my friend abandoned him and left him homeless since apparently he canceled his lease after he saw we bought a house. He also claims we're lesbian Satanists that probably abuse our pets and are mooching off my parents. Most of my friends know the story and know my friend and I moved together at first out of necessity. Then we just don't see ourselves not living together. So yeah, my friend's ex is a nutcase, and if he ever gets close to her again, I will personally give him a free vasectomy. Update 1. Hey everyone, a bit quick on the update, but some people asked if our friends knew where the ex was hiding for 3 years, and I was actually curious. Since I was down for the count at work today, I had time to check with my friends and find out more. Apparently, my bestie did ask them, but they didn't know. From what they tell me, he kinda got back into everyone's life in the last year or so. But he was part of the group because they were besties' friends, not really his. I don't personally know many of his own friends, to be fair. I did track down the ex's sister thanks to social media and poked her for info. She's very nice and always treated my bestie right. I told her what her brother did, and her response was very interesting. Apparently, the ex was dating other girls until his parents decided to move outside the US. He's now living on a friend's couch. The last she heard was a couple of days past when they went out for coffee. He was saying he got this brand new house and was going to be moving in this week. As far as she knew, my bestie begged him to take her back and let her live in his house. I did correct her and said that no, bestie is living with me and my parents in our new house. Her reaction was, of course he lied, and just thanked me for letting her know he was bullshitting. Aside that, I do want to report we are safe. He doesn't know where we live, and most people don't because we're not really ready to open Pandora's box and having friends come over. We also need time to figure out who we want to know. We won't be going to the police unless something serious happens, just because this is technically not a crime, but we are going to keep recordings and print any text conversations if he tries anything. We have all our papers in order and just in case, I plan to contact our company's HR so they know the situation. The company we work for can provide us free legal counsel if things get bad. Update. October 25th, 2023. Well, seems I'm stuck in a saga now. Once again, I have full permission for my friend to share this. As my first post said, my friend's ex ghosted her and then decided to try to move in with her and, by extension, me after years of no contact. My friend told him where he can go. For a bit, it was actually pretty calm. She did cut contact and block him as many suggested, and between the two of us, my bestie and I did some calling in our friend group of people we knew were passing information to her ex. We've settled in the new house together, and she actually gets along better with my parents sometimes than I do. Guess she's the golden child now. Sadly, eventually we had to adult and get much-needed food. We went to Walmart in town together, and by some bad luck, we crossed paths with her ex. I wish all of it was just awkward glances and each on their way. But no. First, he tried to talk to her. My friend said she didn't want to speak to him and didn't want him near her. I mostly reminded him I wanted to rip his spine and beat him to death with it. Sadly, that didn't deter him from following us around like the most obnoxious toilet paper stuck to a shoe. We did our shopping and headed to the car with him still after us. I told my friend for her to get into the car and start the gear and lock it while I loaded the groceries. Her ex then decided to appeal to me to talk to my friend about taking him back. I don't know what power held me back from committing a felony, but I'm pretty sure I've earned a PhD in self-control. I told him in no uncertain terms where he could put his reconciliation and that if he kept following us, I will make sure his legs were out of the equation. I got in the car and my friend began to driving back when we noticed a car following us, and we knew it was following because the direction we were going was not usual. To rule out a possible neighbor, we actually did a full U-turn almost back to the store, stopped to get some fast food, ate in the parking lot, then headed again back home, and the same car was after us. Now, as much as I talk of violence, I have to admit I was terrified. So was my friend. Neither of us has a gun permit. Best we carry is a can of pepper spray, and we know her ex does have guns. So yeah, we were not comfortable at that point. Instead, we headed past our neighborhood and, following the usual advice from TV, drove to a police station. Once in it, we did write a statement and I got scolded about the confrontation in Walmart's parking lot. The reason we know it's her ex was because when we got home, she got a call from him in a new phone number saying, "I know where you live now." We immediately called the police. So there's where we stand. Cops just left a few minutes ago, and my brother is going to be staying over for a few weeks until we get the RO and some sturdier locks. Also, I want to clarify a few things. A lot of people asked why originally my friend took a whole year of being ghosted to accept the relationship was over. While I get it, trust me, please understand that when my friend came to the US, she had no one. She's cut contact with her toxic family. She literally only had her ex. I moved into the US a year later and also came alone at first, but my parents were able to become citizens and I had them. When her relationship died out, she lost not just her boyfriend, but his family, who pretty much were as close to her own family as she could get. It's not easy, and I personally can't imagine how lonely she felt. I could spend Christmas with my parents. She had no one for that first year. So please don't judge her on it, 'cause she doesn't deserve it. It's not easy to be an immigrant when you have no place to return to. Now on to the next story. Story 11. My stepfather wasted my time, so I decided to go on our family vacation without him. I honestly am lost for words. I just don't understand why this is happening to me. I'm 30F, me and my husband 30M, have been married for 5 years, together for 11. Literally had a movie-like relationship, just a constant honeymoon phase. Of course it got boring here and there were bumps along the road, but I would have never thought of this, ever. Yesterday, I was looking up a recipe on Pinterest using my husband's phone when he got a message from a contact called Internet Company. But it was a video, which I thought was weird, so I clicked on it. Within the video, there was a little girl saying "Dada," and a woman in the background that got super excited. Couldn't believe it. I scrolled up, tons of texts all about different things. When he'd be visiting, if he could pick a girl's name, let's call her Kelly. Kelly up today, daycare for, let's call her Dina, date nights, all sorts of stuff. Couldn't believe my eyes. I managed to find the woman on Facebook. All it did was really hammer it in that this was really happening. I tried to convince myself that those weren't his kids. Maybe he was just cheating on me with someone with kids. Please let him be cheating on me with someone with kids. This woman had 2 daughters, worked an office job, and posted pictures of her daughters and what she made for dinner every night. I took a breath and messaged her. It was so much worse than I could have ever imagined. These 2 girls were both his, one being 11 months and the other being 4 years old. I already was panicked at the thought of him cheating on me for 4 years until I asked how long. 10 years. They had been dating for 10 years. He kept up a double life for 10 years. I don't even want to fathom how. Apparently this woman had no idea. He always claimed he had to live away from her for work. He visited every weekend, which, FYI, I work 16-hour shifts on the weekend and return during the afternoon and go straight to bed. She showed me countless videos and images of them together. I just couldn't believe it. How could he do this to me? Why would he do this to me? We have been trying for a kid for 4 months. I was so excited to go through this experience together. But that's wrong. It wouldn't have been together. I'm so glad I'm not pregnant. I can't imagine living this lie while pregnant. I just can't look past this. I feel like such an idiot. How could I not tell? Why wasn't I concerned about never seeing him on the weekends? Why didn't I wonder why he took such frequent business trips? Why didn't I question why he was getting so many texts from an internet company? Why did he waste my time like this? Why did he hurt me like this? Why the hell did he do this? I don't even know how to confront him. I can't sleep. I can't even be around someone like that. Someone who could do this to me. I'm so heartbroken. I can't ignore it. My life is a lie. My life is ruined. I don't know how to even try to move on. Update 1. I've gotten into contact with a divorce attorney. I'm obviously going to divorce him to all the people saying we should just be sister wives. Pretty small update, but I wanted everyone to also know a bunch of info because the same questions keep getting asked, so here's the actual update. I haven't confronted him after dozens of comments advising me not to. Me and the other girl, I'll give her a fake name now I guess. So let's call her Jenny. No, her name is not Jennifer. Have been talking. She has agreed to not confront him only because we are married. I did in fact learn that my husband was supporting this other family of his, and apparently Jenny makes a very low paycheck, so she was and is financially dependent on him. Me and Jenny also got two sides of my husband. Me and my husband's life was early good, I guess you could say. Never had any huge arguments, in fact we rarely argued ever, and if we did it was usually about me wanting him to get a different job because I was led to believe he was only making $31K a year, which is super low for his occupation. We had an amazing intimate life, all the normal couple bases. But apparently he wasn't so nice to Jenny. He was far more distant, literally also yelled at her all the time, treated her like trash, only for him to bring her amazing gifts and take her out on amazing date nights and tell her how much he loved her the next week. What the hell? But that's not it, he loves his daughters. Oh so much, even though he's screwing over their mom and acts like such a good father. That makes me mad. Like super mad. I can't even fathom why he's not 100% trash. Shouldn't I be happy? But I'm not. I'm so mad at him. It's eating away at me that I can't just scream at him about how horrible he is. Now here's a whole bunch of info to answer a bunch of questions. How didn't you notice money missing? Our finances were kept separate. We also got a prenup when we got married. How did he keep up visitation during COVID? Apparently he didn't. Jenny said that he mostly only called and FaceTimed. If she dared brought it up, he'd just hang up on her. Real good guy, I know. Why were you on his phone? Gasp. Could it be my phone was almost dead so I used his? Yes, I noticed he had calls from her. But she was saved as internet company, so I paid little mind. Oh, and funny thing is, I'm saved as spam call in his phone, which fun fact was a joke between us because I used to call him 5 times every day during our early 20s. People used to literally call me spammy. I occasionally got mad at him because how would he know if it was spam or not? Pretty effing mad I didn't get weirded out faster. How didn't you figure out via social media? How did you find her? 1. I usually only use Facebook to look at stupid memes and talk to friends. 2. I had her phone number. That's how. Why didn't you text her instead of messaging her? Got this one as a private message, but I talked to her on Facebook because I didn't want him to see my number on her phone somehow. I know, paranoid and whatever. Why don't you just convert and be sister wives? Why? Why would I do that? How didn't you notice / why did you get married so young? I trusted my partner of 11 years. We got married young because he wanted to and we could. How could he have the energy to keep up a double life? I'm not him, I don't know. Honestly, it's beyond me why he would be with me and her at the same time. It makes more sense for him to have been with her full-time than me. What about family? He told Jenny that he cut his family off years ago. He didn't. And Jenny grew up in foster care and was never adopted. Funny thing is, his family probably won't care that he cheated on me. They'll only care that they were kept away from their grandbabies. Update 2. Hello everyone, I am back. I've moved out of our house. I'm staying with a friend. We're getting divorced. I confronted him with said friend, just simply because you never know what can happen. But at least I got some form of closure out of this. First off, he wasn't sorry at all. Didn't even ask me to stay. Just huffed and said, okay, if this is what you want. When I asked him why, he just looked up at me, didn't say a word. I asked him how he could keep this up for so long. What did he say? Because you both went along with it. So of course I asked further. As many of you guessed, Jenny knew. For some odd reason, she was okay with this. I still don't understand why she would lie to me instead of, just blocking me or something. I'll admit I was upset. Very upset and confused. So I asked again, why would you do this? He told me that he was cheating on me with her since the beginning of our dating, that she was just a fling though, and he didn't expect either relationship to really last, but it did. Woohoo! When I asked him why to cheat in the first place. Because I was young, could get away with it at that time, so why not? He effing disgusted me. I asked why he married me instead of her. Because you were the better choice. When I asked him to elaborate, he definitely elaborated. Jenny didn't have a good job, so she was a bad investment. Ew. Jenny was uglier once again, ew. Jenny wasn't as good as me, she wasn't as clean as me, She wouldn't be as good of a partner as me and so on. I asked why he would even have sex with her if he liked me better. Because she was more kinky. For your information, I am not kinky at all. I'm very vanilla in fact. I asked about the kids. Of course he clarified that the first kid was an accident. He literally did the air quotes. Jenny poked holes in a condom which he found out about but never confronted her. Of course, I don't know if I can trust this. He had a second one with her because in his mind he could handle one, so why not two? What type of dumb shit is that? When I asked about how he treated Jenny, he confirmed that he did in fact only see her on weekends but claimed to have never treated her poorly. He said he treated her as the mother of his children and respected her as such, but never treated her as a romantic partner. Apparently she's only there to screw, not to love. At the end of it all, he asked if he could talk to me privately. I couldn't find a reason not to, so I sent my friend out of the room. He told me that he still loved me and that we could work this out if I really wanted to, that he would abandon Jenny and his daughters but still pay child support. I said no, to which he let out the most dramatic sigh I'd ever heard in my life before saying, "Have it your way then," wearing the most smug smile I've ever seen, like he'd won the biggest battle of all time. I was left conflicted. I cried in my friend's car all the way to his house. It's like my now ex could just change everything with a flick of a switch. I can feel myself already wanting him back. But I'm not going back. I'm never going back. I've got a lawyer, so does he. The papers are signed, all that's left is court. I can't believe how much my life has changed this year. I went from getting giddy to go home to see my husband smile to dreading it, hating it, wishing to never see it again. I don't know whether Jenny really knew, but I'm guessing she did. I mean, how did she not know for 10 years? But that being said, how didn't I know for 10 years? Whatever. I just wanted to let Reddit know that this is what's happened. This didn't happen recently, but I forgot about the whole Reddit post. I've got other things to worry about if you didn't notice. Haha. I don't know what to trust. I don't even want to reach out to Jenny. I don't even want to know the truth anymore. You know, Matthew, if you managed to see this, honestly, I applaud you. Congrats, you did it. You ruined everything. You got away with it for over a decade. And it's finally over. I wonder if you'll go back to Jenny or just find some other girl to trick, to destroy. All I care is that you leave me out of it. I'm looking forward to moving on and finding someone who actually loves me. Now on to the next story. Story 12. Sister's wife treated me like I didn't exist and hid their baby's gender from me. When my sister found out, she said she'd jump in front of a train for me instead of her wife. My sister is a lesbian and married her wife a year ago. They receive financial support from my parents. They're wealthy and generous, have good jobs, and as such have decided to have a baby. Currently, her wife is about 6 months pregnant, and the two of them are visiting for holidays. I'm in college, so I don't see them very often. Yes, my parents give me financial support as well. Everything is fair and square. But I'm really excited for their baby. My sister and her wife had been dating since their senior year of college and were friends since childhood before that. I'm 7 years younger, so I was kind of left out of the loop. I never knew my sister's wife until they got married, and even then, I was swamped with my first year of college, so I didn't really ever get to know her. I was really excited though for this trip since we'd get some one-on-one time together. Our parents live about 2 hours away from my sister and her wife, and I flew in from across the country. We're all staying with our parents, who are not yet retired. My flight got in yesterday late at night, so I slept in. My parents went to work. My sister went to go do some shopping. My sister-in-law stayed in with me, but I didn't realize she was around until she came downstairs while I was making lunch. She's pretty obviously pregnant, and I haven't seen her since her wedding, so I was really excited to see her. She was not. I said hi and went to hug her, and she backed away. I apologized, and she just kind of looked at me weird and went looking through the fridge. I tried to make small talk with her, so I asked when she was due. She gave me a really weird look, like I'd asked what her cup size was, and then just said, March, and kept making her food. I said I was really excited to have a niece or nephew, then asked if she wanted a boy or girl. She sighed really loudly, said she didn't care, and moved on. My sister had mentioned that her wife had PTSD due to a previous pregnancy, so I worried that might have been it. I tried to shift the subject and asked how her work was. She set her knife down really loudly, stared at me for 30 seconds, then said, "Fine," and went into the dining room without saying anything else. Throughout the day, I kept just trying to interact with her. Offered to get her a drink while I was in the room. She just muttered, "No." Asked what she was watching. You wouldn't know it. It was The Simpsons. Said I was really glad she was spending the holidays with us. A very begrudging, "Yeah, really? I thought this must just be how she is." Then my parents and sister came home, and she was super cheery and nice to them. My dad was asking if they had names picked out, and she just wouldn't stop chattering on. My sister said she wanted a family name, and her wife insisted on a unique name. My mom pointed out that my name, Anais, isn't very common, but it's also a family name, same as my grandmother, and they should consider it. I said I wouldn't mind having a niece with my same name, and my sister was really enthusiastic about it. Her wife gave me a death glare. I just ended up getting the silent treatment at dinner. I asked if she would pass the potatoes, and she didn't listen. I repeated myself. She ignored me, and then my sister told her I had asked for her to pass the potatoes. Suddenly she was all bubbly and giggling. Guess I didn't hear. What do I do? Should I tell my sister directly? Challenge her? I have very positive relationships with my parents and my sister, and I want to be really involved with my niece/nephew, so I really don't want to go 100% no contact or anything. How can I try to resolve or at least get over this? Update 1. As of this morning, so we all had breakfast together. I sat across from my sister between my parents, with my SIL kitty corner to me. My SIL actually spoke to me, but it wasn't all that positive. She asked if I was seeing anyone in kind of a snarky tone. I said no, school was really busy, I just didn't have time, etc. She responded, "Well, not everyone finds someone." My sister tried changing the subject, asking my parents whether or not they'd gone to their winter home yet. They're those rich people. My SIL was so nice to them. She was saying what a gorgeous house it is, how grateful she was to have been able to take a vacation there with my sister last month. My mom is easily flattered, so once my SIL got started, she started gushing about her, and it was just a mush fest. After breakfast, I offered to go take our dogs for a walk. When I came back, my parents had left with my sister to go shopping again, and my SIL was the only one home. She asked me how I was liking college, and I said I was liking it a lot. I major in pre-dental, started talking about it a bit, and she rolled her eyes. I apologized for oversharing, and she said, "No, it's fine. You just have a problem with reading the room, I guess." Then she walked away. When my sister comes home, I'm definitely going to tell her about it. Additional info: OP clarified why SIL may not like her. There was one thing I might be able to think of. In terms of her wedding, it was initially scheduled on the day of my finals. This was prior to invitations being produced/mailed. Just their idea. So I called my sister to tell her I either wouldn't make it or the date would have to be changed. She was really upset about it because she and her wife had wanted a winter wedding, the date seemed perfect for them, etc. I said they didn't have to sacrifice the winter aspect, just maybe move it a day back. There was a kind of big fight, and I can assume my SIL got in on it, but my sister is the kind of person who likes to be liked. Think of her as a human golden retriever. And she didn't want to be mad at me, so we worked through it. Her wedding ended up being the day after my finals, which I was grateful for, and there's been no resentment or hard feelings since. My sister actually laughs at her for being kind of an ass. Her choice quote from that time was, "You just don't have to go, it's just a test." I was my sister's MOH, and I didn't see much of my SIL prior to the wedding. She'd gotten food poisoning from her bachelorette party, so she was kind of holed up for the majority of the pre-wedding hubbub. During the reception, I made a toast. Talked about my sister and her wife's friendship, how we've just been waiting for the two of them to get married. They're a match made in heaven, etc. She teared up, gave me a big hug, and said she was excited to be my sister-in-law. I wanted to talk more with her, but some relatives wanted to ask me why I chose the college I did, so I went to go talk to them. I'm probably going to bring this up with my sister either today or tomorrow. It all depends on what my SIL is up to. Update 2. So I didn't get the chance to talk to my sister. When my parents came back from shopping with my sister, my mom started saying how she had the perfect onesie for her granddaughter. Before my SIL could start gushing, I asked what my mom meant. She asked if I hadn't heard I'd be having a niece, and I replied I hadn't. My sister said it was weird because she'd asked her wife to tell me once they'd gotten the ultrasound. Her wife had zero excuse and had the most deer-in-the-headlights reaction. There was something that just sort of snapped, and I started crying. I felt kind of spoiled and horrible for it, so I apologized and went upstairs with the dogs. My parents came upstairs, and my mom went to go ask if I was okay. And my sister and her wife started shouting downstairs. My mom basically said that my SIL does not like me and that it wasn't really my fault. She's just bad with people she doesn't know and took it out on me inappropriately. And yes, my SIL was still pissed about the wedding date thing, which just made it worse. I felt really shitty and just really bad. Part of it wasn't my fault, but part of it was my fault, and apparently my sister knew about both issues beforehand and had given my SIL directions to try and get along with me. They were still shouting downstairs, and I was kind of bordering on a meltdown, so I asked my mom if we could take the dogs for another walk. We went out the back, and when we came home, my sister had left the house to cool down, and her wife was upstairs. I spent most of the rest of the day downstairs until my sister came home. She had obviously been crying and was in a bad mood. My mom took her into the kitchen to try and calm her down, so I kept sitting in the living room. I felt like a bratty little kid again. I genuinely felt like I'd mess up my sister's marriage and probably ruined our relationship in the process too. Everything just felt awful. And when my sister came out of the kitchen, she didn't even look at me, just went storming back upstairs. Her wife started yelling first, and they were fighting for a while before it got quieter upstairs. My mom, dad, and I went out for dinner, and when we came home, my SIL was waiting for us. My SIL apologized to me, saying she had been petty and rude and that the wedding date thing had been a non-issue. I said it was okay if she was upset about the wedding thing, but I wish she had let me know. She said it wasn't that easy since my sister would basically take a bullet for me, and it had caused them a big fight before their wedding. I said I had no idea and that I was sorry to be the source of that tension, and I just wanted to be able to be a good sister-in-law myself and be a good aunt. My SIL got angry and said I had ruined the opportunity for the first one, and she wasn't banking on the second one. Then she stormed upstairs, and she and my sister got into another big fight. I felt awful. The bad feelings manifested physically, and I spent most of the night throwing up while my sister and her wife fought. My mom was really kind to stay up with me, and my dad tried to get my sister and her wife to get off each other's backs. I specifically heard my SIL shouting, "Who would you jump in front of a train for? Me or her?" And my sister responded without missing a beat, "My sister, no questions asked." They got quieter after that, and my SOL started up the screaming about an hour later, saying, "I'd let all my siblings die for you." My sister slept on the couch, and the two of us went out for breakfast in the morning. She basically said that after my SIL gave birth, she and my sister were going to separate. They would try counseling prior to the birth and afterwards too, but if things weren't getting better, they'd be divorcing. I said that it shouldn't have gotten that far, and I was sorry for pushing the both of them. My sister said that my SIL does this to all my sister's friends, and they've been fighting often, but she clarified that the way she treated me was a deal breaker. She said it might have sounded sad, but I was her best friend from birth, and she wouldn't let me not feel welcome like that. I felt really guilty and started crying again. She kept saying she wanted it this way, their relationship was broken as is, etc. It's been tense and awkward ever since. My SIL won't look at me or speak to me, and I've given up. My sister has been by my side a lot and has amped up the good sister behavior 10x. I feel like shit. Everything is really terrible, and I'm sure I'm going to be making another post during the actual Christmas shit show. Not a great update, but there we are. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.